There you go. Yeah, it's starting.
All right, so start off check-in. So like name, PPPs, and what are your summer plans? So anyone want to start? I can start then. My name is Aaron. I'm a second year. I prefer he, him, and his. I am committee appointments coordinator and city liaison on Senate. And my summer plans are I will be working in a public defender office in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
I'm Lauren. I'm a fourth year. I prefer she, her, and hers. My summer plans are undetermined at this point. I'm graduating. That's all I have.
Also, do you want us to take a second? Just get this out.
Yeah, that'd be super.
Is
Amelia is coming.
Matthew was coming?
I was at a meeting with her not very long ago.
Okay, I'll share her on these then.
Okay, that's great.
You're like who's downstairs in the cellar. She's up there.
Oh, cool. Okay. We're going to start checking.
I'm Mia. I like she, her, hers. And I'm a second year. Is that what we're saying? Yeah. And I will be working in Kate Hagan's U.S. Senate race in North Carolina this summer.
Whoa, really?
I really like her.
I'm Zia. I'm used to he, him, and his. I'm a second year, and I'm going to be working on Allison Lonergan Grimes' race for Senate in Kentucky.
Hi, I'm Hope. I'm third year. I prefer she, her, and hers. Outreach coordinator and city liaison. This summer, I'm going to be working for Progress Women Shall Degree in DC.
My name is Paul. I use he, him, and his. I'm the community liaison. In July, I start a job in Madison, Wisconsin.
I'm Julia. I use she, her, and hers. I'm SFC co-chair. And this summer, I'll be in Chicago working at a legal aid office.
Sarah, I use she, her, and hers. I'll be here this summer working, designing curriculum for the 9 scholars.
Hi, I'm Patrick. I use he, him, and his. I'm the student treasurer. This summer I'll be interning at MIAC, New York.
I'm Rachel. I use she, her, and hers. I'm a senior, similar to Lauren, graduating. I'm not sure if I'm a senior. Don't want to talk about it.
I'm Emma. I use she, her, hers. I'm a first year. And to break the pattern, I'm not going to be working on a political campaign. I'm just going to be babysitting.
Kiki lives in there, he him his second year, gonna be here in the summer.
I'm Ari. I'm this summer. I'll probably do some sort of academic research back home on buying and selling sneakers community in New York. Chris Howell is my advisor.
Hi, Malaku. That's not me. For the summer, she, her, hers, and for this summer, sorry, I get wounded. Okay, for this summer, I'm gonna be here doing presidential public service fellowship and doing research in economics department. Oh, this is my best friend visiting me from home because I needed that visit. So, you know.
Huh? I just shared it.
Yeah. Okay, something's wrong there.
Peter, I got working his. I'm the treasurer for Senate, and over the summer I'm going to be volunteering at ER in New York and working with a lab that's trying to cure depression. Which, see if we can do that in 3 months.
Sarah, she, her, hers. And for the summer, I'm going to be having shoulder surgery, and it's going to be great.
Okay, can I have approval of the minutes? Yeah.
It's my second one, so.
Oh, sorry.
Can I process suggest that we do SFC committee appointments under outside business since there are guests here for that?
Good.
absence? I think
General
it's.
feelings.
General feelings.
Okay.
Cool. Everybody good? All right. Can we let the other people that are in financial aid first?
Sure.
Cool. That works.
Thank you, Evan.
Now, approval of the agenda. That was awesome. All right, let's move on to outside business, financial aid. Thank you, sir.
Yes. I'm sorry, I'm here under two hats today. I'm fearless and loathing and have my own agenda. But Ari's going to take over, so.
So I put this on the agenda because some of the people who are working on the financial aid policy, what do you guys call yourselves? Sorry.
The people working on the financial aid policy.
No, this is the
DOFA?
DOFA?
Yeah.
Connecting on financial accessibility or something? Approached me because they're interested in updating the student body on some of the work that they've been doing and sort of like keeping everybody in the loop, because often when, these big like March 4th or any of these like campus-wide outrages happen, some organizers emerge, but there's always a problem with making sure that the student body is like up to date. So I just wanted to, I know this is our last plenary, but I wanted to propose that we keep the possibility of sending an all-campus email open in the next coming weeks through next weekend reading period, in the case that DOFA approaches us with information that the student body should know about financial aid and what they're doing. So I just wanted to, put that out there. We can still send off-campus emails in the next couple weeks, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I just wanted to see general feelings on how people feel about that. I think it's really important.
We'll still vote on emails, right?
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. That's it.
All right, I guess then we are jumping to committee, student finance committee. Why are we supposed to? Yeah.
Could we just get
What?
Can we get a quick update on what you guys are
Yeah, totally. So we're trying to, we've been collaborating with, chair shuffling. We've been trying to collaborate, talking with various administrators about organizing a couple of forums, which I just found out the plural of which is fora. So fora, about both, one of which would be strictly informative about trying to help students understand how the operating budget works and why, how certain funding is allocated, and the second one would be a feedback session for them to see where students are at and how this changes are would affect students, so that they can incorporate our feedback into the future process of making a policy. And so we've been working on collaborating with them on that, but we think it's really important to that as many students as possible from as many different kinds of demographics as possible are represented in those conversations, and that's where you guys can help.
Cool. Excellent.
All right, so student finance committee appointments. I have shared all the senators on the overall folder with the SFC. Does anybody not have access to that? We have 10 applicants. They should all be on there.
I have access to that? Or not push December, but.
Sure. In your OSD.
Yeah.
Aaron,
Yeah.
how many, just before we jump in, how many seats are available in SFC?
5 seats.
And there's 10 applicants.
And then you're elected co-chair next year from SFC pick.
What did you say?
I'll be elected co-chair next year from Senate, and then the freshman pick.
Right.
Wait, you're electing a co-chair from Senate?
No, that's next year.
Okay, so
There's another
I.
outlet.
I've also put together an appointments key, which has letters corresponding to the names of the applicants so that we can preserve their privacy while still being able to discuss them in an open forum. So that's under the folder that I'm sharing you all with. So I guess hopefully having read all those applicants, or as many as possible, I'm sorry again that it came so late, we were finishing up the interviews today. Can anyone want to just start talking general feelings about all of on staff? You can go ahead.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So all names will be discussed, like there will be no names said, there's like,
No.
could we have a key?
So I was at the interview for both C and E today. Both candidates gave great interviews in my opinion. They've both been on SFC before they were on it this year. They both expressed that they work very well together, and I would feel really comfortable about having them both be on SFC again for this upcoming year and next year.
But I throw a proposal on the table, and obviously we gotta go through staff first, but I propose that we appoint candidates C and B.
Okay. Thanks, Peter. Yes.
I propose we appoint candidate J.
Wait, can people say why?
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's on the table, so now we can talk about it. Yeah, so Lauren,
Yeah, I'm glad we started with C and E because I think that as two of the returning applicants, they're also two of the strongest applicants. And in my mind, it's essential to be reappointed for next year. They both gave incredible interviews today. They have a lot of passion. If you look on the applicant answer comparison, you can see how much both of them talk. And clearly have a lot of ideas for next year and have also done a lot of self-reflecting on how this year went. And I was very impressed with both of them, and I think that we should definitely reappoint them.
next is Emma.
Yeah, okay. So in terms of applicant C and E, I was also at their interviews and I would have absolutely no qualms about appointing either one of them. I mean, obviously I don't want to get this to become a really confused discussion at this point because we're just starting out. But I also think that applicant G gave an incredibly strong interview, absolutely no qualms there, would appoint. And also applicant I, who I know there is a time management concern with that one, but I think he was just an incredibly strong candidate. So I feel strongly about those four in particular.
All right, Rachel?
Yeah, I've been at a number of interviews. I felt really strongly about candidate F. I thought she had a strong interview. I thought she had a really good perspective to bring. I just thought she seemed very capable, and I would like to see her there.
Okay, Zia.
Yeah, just to, I guess, to support my support for candidate J is just they have a very technical background, and I think that falls in line with the kind of mindset that goes into budgeting. And they also come from a very low-income community from Chicago. So I think it's grabbing someone that understands the fundamentals to budgeting and allocating resources, but at the same time comes into the picture representing a very underrepresented demographic on the Oberlin campus.
Thanks for that. Peter?
I just wanted to say I've agreed with most of the picks so far. The only one that I had any qualms with was candidate I, who had definitely significant overcommitment issues. And for any of you who know or worked with me, if I'm telling you you're overcommitted, you're really overcommitted. He had a lot of things planned for next year and a lot of things that this individual was currently involved in. And in addition to that, this person attempted to work with me once and was actually part of a working group I was on. And proceeded to kind of drop off the face of the earth on that, even after seeing news about that, which makes me very nervous about putting this candidate on the SFC. In addition to that, they're planning on doing honors next year, which for a lot of SFC candidates has been, or a lot of SFC members, has been a little bit too much on top of SFC responsibilities, especially given how backloaded both the SFC is with spring budgeting and how backloaded honors is with defending your thesis and writing your final paper. So those are some of my concerns about candidate I.
Just for like organization's sake of the discussion, I wonder if we could maybe continue talking about C and E and vote on them, because I think that there's probably consensus that they're good. And then maybe talk about like each of the people who have been mentioned so far one at a time. Does that sound good? Yeah.
All right. I had myself on stack next. I will change my answer a little bit, given that we're going to be talking about C&E right now. So we can talk about that a little bit later. I was also at C&E's interviews. I think they're really solid. I think it's important to have returners, at least for the sake of institutional memory, and it's important to have returners that work well with one another. I think they would be good leaders, but also I think they're cognizant about how much space they take up in the room, and from their interview, it seems like they'll work to either take up less space or like continue to be cognizant of that. So that's the end of my thing. Clarifying question?
Never mind.
Do you still get a staff? Next we have Hope. No. Okay. Patrick.
I was going to say something about I, but also I wanted to say, like, I was going to stress the importance of institutional memory, as you already did. So,
Okay, you can go back to
congrats to me.
Julia.
Am I?
Yeah.
Steph, is up? Okay. I guess since we're talking about returners, I'd like to also point out that applicant A is also a returning candidate, and I haven't talked about applicant A at all yet. And I don't know. I guess it's up to you guys if we want to think about all the returning things at once. I guess as an SFC member here, I would say that the more, like, there's no such thing as like too many, yes, there's such thing as too many returners, there definitely is, but I think 3 is certainly an acceptable number. There were only 2 returning people this year, and it was a struggle. It was just me and Mimi, and like, luckily we get along well and are friends, and like both live in Chicago, so we're able to coordinate over the summer, and both very responsible, but it was a very, very heavy load having to deal with teaching every single person on the committee, like everything at the beginning of the year. And yes, we'll have our treasurers, but if people are worried about 3 people being too much, I would say no.
I'm also an SFC member, and I want to sort of respectfully maybe talk about the point that you just made. While I agree it's like great to have institutional memory, I do worry about, and like while I also want to be very respectful of like the time commitment that's put on the returning members over the summer and at the beginning of the year, because that's a lot. I do think that having a committee the SFC has a lot of power, and in terms of like allocating over $1 million of students' money, and really, really has like a lot of control over like what kind of programming happens on this campus. And I think something that's difficult to be about being a new member on the SFC is there's people who are like, have some institutional memory, know what's going on, and or like this is how we've done it in the past. And I think like the ability to like question that, or having people who will question that is a really good thing. And having a committee that's like half, returning members or like a lot of returning members could jeopardize that in some way. Obviously, I've worked with candidates A, E, and C, and I think they're all great, and have done like a great job in the committee. But there's sort of an argument to be made on both sides about having a lot of returning members in the committee.
Yeah, I have myself on next. So I agree with that a lot. And so thinking about that in relation to the candidates, I thought all 3 candidates gave good interviews. I was more partial to C and E's interview. I think they were really strong. They seemed like they really cohesive together. And I think A is great, but I also think there are other new voices that I'd like to include in this committee that were separate from A. So that's my opinion on that. Patrick, you're next. I can start here. All right, so there's no.
I mean, I was just gonna say, something that kind of struck me about A, and it was really interesting because I really didn't realize how much I thought about this until later, but something that happened during the interview with candidate A was that they couldn't think of something that they wanted to do better with SIC, like something that was wrong that they like wanted to change. And like at first I thought like, oh, like, I mean, of course, like you're on the spot, like you can't think of anything, but like something that just personally like with Senate, that was kind of one of the biggest things for me was like realizing all the things I wanted to change, and like that was like part of like me really feeling like I was like really invested in the organization and like a lot of things. And I don't want to suggest that that candidate is not any of those things, but I think it kind of adds to what's kind of been said that the other two applicants were very, very strong, and we can still have the institutional memory and bring in voices and like that. So.
All right. There's nobody else on this. Oh, sorry, Laura's going to say. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Mimi said. I was kind of disappointed that A couldn't really think of
Mia.
Mia. Yeah, did I say Mimi?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was disappointed that A couldn't really think of something that SFC could do better, and I think that's something that we do talk about on the committee a lot, and both of the other returning members had a lot of things to say about that, and it just really put it in comparison for me. And I was a little disappointed, but I think he is a strong candidate, and I want to keep talking about him, but I also think that C and D are much, much stronger, and would feel comfortable just going ahead at that point, and then continuing to talk about.
Nobody else on staff, which means we'll go to Peter's proposal to appoint C and D. General feeling, or do you want to hold the motion?
I mean, you should hold the vote. We don't have to do general feelings next time.
All right. So I think it's just general feelings for the vote. Yeah. All right, whatever. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions?
Sorry. Okay.
Should we can vote again if you want.
12. There's 12 people here, so
So all 12
yes. Yeah. Y'all abstaining?
No abstentions? No. All right, so that's passed. We have now appointed applicants C and E to the Student Finance Committee. Who wants to talk about the next person? Laura.
Okay, so who do I want to talk about? I want to talk about Scott Holford. Oh, sorry. G.
Scott who?
G.
Different one.
Let's talk about somebody else.
Yeah. Oh, I have to talk about somebody else now.
You did.
Black that out.
You can talk about it.
I can cut it out.
I want to talk about candidate I.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So candidate I thought gave an incredible interview and had a lot of thoughts on how to like work with student organizations, help them collaborate, be a part of the process of budgeting, get into touch with them, like talk about what their goals are and help them develop them. He also is really tapped into the like cultural organization community and religious organizations, which I think is really important, and it's an important perspective to have on SFC. However, I've heard concerns from a couple people that he is really busy and might be a little bit flaky. But I don't know, I was very, very impressed with him and all of his answers. He clearly is someone who's like really great at communicating his ideas. He's an English and creative writing major, great critical thinker, just very thoughtful.
All right, we have Hope up next.
Yeah, just kind of to reiterate what Lauren just said, I think Ken and I like definitely gave like a very, very impressive interview, and I really, really enjoyed listening to what they had to say and like their new like strategies for like making SSC a better and like more accessible place. However, Ken and I also had an interview today that they were unable to attend because they forgot. And so that was kind of like one of a big red flag for me, and I was like, oh, it's really unfortunate that they like gave such great answers, and I think that they would be a great addition to the committee. However, if they can't make this interview, it was kind of like, I mean, they already said that they were very busy and that they were sorry that they were unable to attend, but like, I don't know, I feel that, especially since SSC has such large weekly commitments, especially in the spring semester, and they have their honors and capstone that they're writing, I think that would, I don't know, I'd be very uncomfortable appointing them to the committee if like, they're unable to attend.
Alright, we have Emma.
I think, well, I don't know, I felt pretty positively about Candidate I because like Candidate I's interview was an entire hour long because this candidate literally just had so much to say and was so enthusiastic about the idea of being on the SFC, which I think is a really good sign. Like it was not at all like a forced interview, like nothing was weird, so that was good. I do think that in terms of the time commitment, like, yeah, that is a little bit problematic, but Candidate I also did stress that while the candidate was involved in a lot of different activities across campus right now, they were going to step back on a lot of things next year and like make time for the SFC, and it came across as a priority for which they would drop other, not necessarily drop, but like step back on other commitments and just devote more time to the SFC than other things because it was a priority. So I don't know, I mean, missing the interview is not the world's most positive sign, but I think that that's like one strike against the candidate who otherwise is really good in a lot of really important ways.
Thanks. Patrick?
Yeah, I was extremely impressed by Candidate I. I thought they showed like a lot of really good critical thinking. They had great answers to the questions. It's really well thought out. They also offer a lot of like good perspectives that are really good for like when you're allocating to certain organizations. This candidate knows a lot about publications, cultural organizations, and just I think this would be really valuable to SFC. Then again, the time constraint issue, that's like a really serious issue, because not being able to make it to meetings would be really detrimental to the entire committee, really. And we need to make sure, especially when spring budgeting rolls around in the spring, it's difficult to make all the meetings, but like it makes it even harder when certain people like are never available.
All right, Peter.
I just wanted to echo one thing, or not echo, respond to one thing. So Kennedy, I was discussing freeing up time for the next year. This wasn't described as dropping organizations. It was described as stepping back, and the candidate rationalized that as being okay because he stated that he was high up enough in these organizations that he could just sort of step back and that wouldn't be a problem, which I think from somebody in the leadership role is sort of problematic. You shouldn't step back from your responsibilities because you can. You should stick with it and keep supporting something that you care about and have been part of for a long time. So that part was concerning to me. In addition to that, the candidate had some concerning responses to a question involving decision making within an organization, and they essentially just kept pressing an issue for a very long period of time without any support on a group project, and didn't really give it up until they were told very, very directly that that was not what's going to happen and that they should stop talking about it. And it seemed a little bit stubborn, which makes sense in some contexts, but this was just kind of a creative choice. And it seemed a little bit problematic to be trying to make a choice for a large group of people when all you have is your very, very strong opinion.
Okay, Mia, we have a clarifying question.
Yeah, can you direct us to the minutes for the interview? Sure, it's I, and it was the question of, I can't remember which one. It was talking about publishing.
Unpopular decisions.
It was unpopular decisions, actually.
Yeah, I think he may have misinterpreted what he meant about. Peter, did you misinterpret what he said about cultural organizations? I think that I don't think that he meant that he was in leadership positions. I think he meant he was like deeply involved and entrenched in these communities and organizations, and that because he had friends and connections, that he could still sort of be like tangentially involved without like going to every single meeting.
Okay, direct response. I think that was earlier on. I think I'm referring to part later on when he mentioned that he was more involved in higher levels of it, which I believe he did mention. But I can check the minutes.
All right, Mia's up next.
Oh man. Well, okay, so I feel kind of weird about bringing this up because on the one hand, I really, really applaud this candidate for being forthcoming about these things, but the example that we've been discussing about like the unpopular decision, I had some concerns about kind of how that worked too, but there's also another story that he shared about just like not checking his email for several weeks and like missing a project. And on the one hand, I thought it was really a good sign that he felt comfortable to share it and like shows that he's obviously learned a lot, but it still really concerns me. And like I don't know if other senators feel the same way. And we could definitely like go to the minutes and like look at it, but it's kind of like there's that fine line between sharing a weakness and just telling, like sharing a weakness that you've grown from and pointing out kind of concerning things within yourself as a candidate. And I thought the candidate kind of walked that line. So.
I feel like we're starting to like sound like this candidate notes, like their time management and stuff. Like honestly, like they showed up to their interview, they are committing or wanting to commit to this obligation, and they feel like they can do it. I mean, there's no reason we shouldn't take their word for it, regardless of like how we've known them in the past. Because the information that like you got from the interview about like their time management, like I don't know. I guess if you did a little digging with like other students, like you'd find that we don't always make all of our commitments. Like the things come up. I think that from what I heard from people at the interview, like being one of the strongest candidates, like focusing on like their time management, is like trivial.
Alright, I got Rachel.
I guess this is a question for people on SFC currently. If we elect a candidate and, like, I guess hypothetically during the course of the semester they're completely unable to like fulfill their duties, is there a process for removing them and appointing someone else?
I should have mentioned this earlier. Tonight we'll also be appointing an alternate, so that if any of these people decides they don't want to do it or something happens through the course of the year, there'll be someone else to step up.
I'll put you on stack. I have Ariel next.
Pat had a direct response
Do
to
you
that.
have a
Yeah, we keep points actually. OSC does it. Yeah, the committee coordinator is responsible for keeping points to miss certain duties. So at a certain point, they can be removed.
Can I also direct respond to that? Also, like, I mean, I don't know who would be on the committee next year, but the way it works this year, like, if someone, you know, doesn't check it, there would be no situation where someone would get away with not checking their email for a week. Like, you would be found out, and you would be, like, would have missed like 3 meetings by then, because like we have so many meetings, and like it would have been a problem. You would have been approached. Like, I think time management is extremely important for SFC, and like that should be taken into account for sure. But we also, you know, we work with people. We make sure that they understand from the beginning SFC is a commitment, and like, you know, if the candidate believes that he can like work things to prioritize what needs to be prioritized, like that would be made clear what would need to be prioritized for success on SFC.
I propose we appoint candidate I.
Alright, so propose, we're still on stack though. Ariel, you're next.
Great. So I wanted to talk about a couple of things that were brought up. I was at this candidate's interview, and the thing about the email, I believe what they said is it was talking about. I actually can't recall the question, but the purpose of the story was like a mistake that they had learned from. So the story was he had forgotten to check his email. He like missed a deadline for a project in his freshman year, and like had to write this big paper in like a day. And from then on, like never doesn't check his email. Always responds within 15 minutes. Like that was sort of the point he was trying to make. And it if you look at the notes from the meeting, like I believe it's in there, or it should be in there. So that's, I think, the point of the story. It's also a thing that occurred in his freshman year, which is, I believe that this candidate is a junior, so quite a while ago. And then also in terms of the project, I think it's probably helpful if everyone just knows like what the project was, where he was stubborn, about something. And that's okay if I share that. It's probably in all the meeting minutes. He was a member of the Plum Creek Review. He wanted them to do a poetry only, poetry only, then a prose only, then art only issue instead of mixing it as they usually do. He was like very adamant about that. Pushed for it, and then the editors were like, no, we're not going to do that. And he's like, okay, I think that's the wrong call, but I'll work with you. So I think, I just, knowing all of that, I think could speak to stubbornness, could not, but I think it's important that everyone knows the whole story. And then in terms of honors and busyness, I'm a senior. I was a new member of the committee this year. I turned in my honors thesis last week. And I think that, Pat, Julia, and Lauren can speak to this. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I did a pretty good job, prioritizing the committee and being able to manage my time so I can make that a commitment. So I think the question is not necessarily are you very busy? It's whether or not you will make it a priority. And then I think this candidate, as Lauren said and Pat said and a few other people said, had extremely, extremely thoughtful answers to all the questions. Seriously thought a lot about the role of the SFC on this campus and ways to improve it, which I think was really great. I think he also has the perspective. I was only at 3 of the interviews, so I don't know about everyone, but I think it's really important to have people on the committee who have a lot of experience in campus organizations, so they know sort of on the other end how our organizations working with the SFC, working with their money, deciding their budgets, and I think he brought that perspective in a way that the other candidates that I saw interviewed did not, which doesn't mean that you shouldn't necessarily appoint them, but I think that's a really important thing to have on a committee.
Thanks. I got you, but Emma.
Oh, I guess I just wanted to echo a lot of what Kiki said first and what Ariel said also, that it's not really we shouldn't be mothering these candidates and saying well, you look like you're too busy, go back to your room or whatever. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to pick the people who are going to be who are going to bring the most important perspectives, who are going to bring the most diversity of thought and opinion and represent this entire campus. And I think that this candidate I can do that. I know there were some concerns about this whole stubbornness thing and also about the email thing, but also for the email situation, at least, I think it was freshman year. I don't think it was a number of weeks, and he said that he was ill. So I think we've all gotten sick and forgotten to check our email for a couple of days because we were throwing up. So I think that's fine. Just learn from it. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. And I think that I don't know. I think he just gave the most thoughtful answer that almost any of the interviews I went to, and I went to more than half of them actually. I think that he had really good ideas, that he really cared, that he was really interested in supporting the communities he came from and making sure that there are these different perspectives being heard on the SFC. And I think he'd be a really important person to have there.
All right, I've got Patrick, then Kiki, then Hope, then Peter.
Well, actually, everything I wanted to say was said by Ariel, so.
Okay, we got Kiki, then Hope, then Peter.
As we proceed through the rest of these interviews, I think it's important that if you do bring up a point of concern, contextualize it, because I really appreciate what you said of giving everything context about time management and all of that, because it's not at all the same thing. Hearing people talk about this candidate and I don't know, they just give the full story about it, because it's 2 very different stories that I got from the people who originally talked about time management and then the actual what he said. So, or just reference what you're talking about.
Oh.
Okay, I don't know if do you want me to reiterate what I meant about time management? Okay, so basically the scenario was we had an interview scheduled for this candidate at 4 this afternoon, and so I emailed this person at 4 and I was like, hey, just a reminder, you have this interview, we're gonna be at this place. And then they emailed us 10, 15 minutes later, oh, oops, I forgot. Can you be rescheduled? And I was like, oh, we're not sure, whatever. So basically, and they were fine with that. They were very apologetic, and I think that's the context that I have. But now listening to all the voices in this room talking about how there are actually mechanisms within SFC in which to earn accountability, and I feel more comfortable. I feel more comfortable appointing this person now that I understand that there are these structures of accountability. But at the same time, if you wanted context for the time management issues that I saw, I just wanted to say that.
Peter.
Just wanted to respond to what Emma said. I totally appreciate that we're not trying to be candidates. We're not telling people how to run their lives, but we are picking people for a job, and we need to pick people who can do that job most effectively. SFC's been really, really good this year, and people have been really on top of their stuff. In past years, apparently there's been a lot of issues with getting things done in little enough time. Going on the interview for an hour, that may be an issue if you have a lot of organizations to budget for. I appreciate there's a lot to be said, and it's also making up a lot of ideas, but sometimes you need to get things done, and you do need to show up to your meetings, and you do need to put your time in. And I definitely appreciate what you guys are saying. If you guys have an accountability system, I appreciate that, and if you guys trust it, I'll go with it, but I'm just concerned about appointing a candidate when we aren't sure if they can actually make time for the job that we're asking them to do. And honestly, given all the amazing things this person does, and I appreciate that they do a lot, it would be hard to give up everything else you're doing to such a great extent for one job.
Alright, I've got Zia and then Zach is done with the stuff.
So I would initially, I wasn't at this interview, but from what I've heard and what I've read in the document, I was initially concerned about, time management issues for this candidate, but I've been reassured that SFC has their own internal mechanisms for ensuring that people are doing the jobs. If they're not, they're out. We're going to appoint an alternate candidate for SFC, so, and we've also already appointed two members that are already on SFC, so I think it's important, to have that continuity so people know what they're doing, but at the same time, a little, not risk, but it's important to bring new things to the table. And I think by appointing candidate I, that is bringing something new to the table, someone that will represent marginalized communities on a very holistic level, especially when it comes to religious communities, which I think there's, I wouldn't say a lack of representation, but I think it's important to have people on SFC that fully understand the dynamics of those communities on campus. So, just my 2 cents. I'm not really that concerned about this candidate's time management issues, knowing that there are very functioning internal mechanisms within SFC.
Alright, Peter has a process suggest.
Given we have 8 candidates for 3 remaining spots, can I process suggest that we talk about all of them before voting on each one of them individually? Because the fact is, for 3 spots remaining, the makeup of those spots might be a little bit more complicated than just this person yes, this person no. Because I think that a lot of people would be good. We need to pick the 3 best for the 3 remaining spots. So could we talk about everyone before we do a proposal?
Okay, so I'm going to start talking about candidate G.
Wait, are you gonna general?
Are we good with that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
He also had an incredibly strong interview. He was a food buyer in Osaka, which is sort of similar experience to the SFC, and he was talking about how he had some members of the co-op come up to him and say that they were really counting on the refund checks for their summer plans, and some other members of the co-op wanted to sort of spend more lavishly on meals, and he had a conversation with the head cooks to help them find ways to still make their meals but do it more conservatively so that they could save money for the rest of the members. And I was just very impressed by that, and also working with a budget and having lots of competing requests on it is pretty similar to what SMC does. He also seemed very sort of sensitive and empathetic and willing to work one-on-one with groups. He was also one of the few people who said that there was a question about bringing new voices, bringing student voices into the committee. He's one of the few people who said that he would talk to people he didn't know. Most people said that they would talk to their friends. And I can read what he said. He said, getting into new spaces that I haven't been in to see what people are feeling and get their input. And I mean, almost everyone else was like, I just talked to my friends and people I'm in classes with. So I was very impressed with that. He's also an RA. I just think he would be a very strong addition to the community.
I'm on next. I just want to echo that totally. I honestly think I and B, another one, are like ideal for this committee. But on the subject of G, like especially, like he had great like eye contact. He was like very warm. Like I'd love to work with him. So I think he'd be very, very effective on this SFC.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Aaron and Lauren just said about candidate G, I was at this interview and I was very impressed by their answers, and I was very impressed by the organizations that they're in and like their open-mindedness and their focus on inclusivity and accessibility, and like they just seem like a very open, friendly person who would have no qualms reaching out to they even said it, like reaching out to groups that they aren't necessarily spend time in, and yeah, I just think that this candidate would be a good
Alright, I'm going to propose that we appoint candidate G, but we can totally still keep talking about other people. Rachel.
Okay, I was not the only person at the interview for candidate F, so I'd like to hear if people had negative or positive feelings throughout that interview, because I liked that candidate a lot.
Okay, I have Patrick, then Lauren, then Peter, then Begin.
All right, I unfortunately had to leave early for that one due to some scheduling conflict, but I recommended that candidate F apply for SFC because this candidate also applied for SFC coordinator previously, and I just really liked them as an applicant. I thought they were really good, they seemed like a really good thinker. It seemed like really easy to work with. So I just wanted to reflect the general positive feelings about this candidate from previous interviews. But.
Sounds great. Lauren.
Yeah, I also really liked this candidate. She was very friendly and down to earth. She also, when was talking about reaching out to students, she was saying that a lot of the loudest and most extreme opinions aren't necessarily the most representative ones, and that she really wanted to try and reach out to people who were in the middle and who weren't making their opinions widely heard, which I thought was really important. And I also think that she's the only candidate we've talked about so far, aside from candidate A, who's a freshman right now, and I think that having younger people on the committee is really important.
All right, Peter.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo, I really, really, really like this candidate. They seem to add a lot of good ideas, and that they would really be good at expressing them, and full support.
Sounds good, Mia.
Again, just adding, something I thought was really cool is that this candidate talked about how something that they had been told in the past is that they didn't listen very well, that they talked too much, and that was something they seemed like they had a very big personality, and what Lauren said was actually exactly what I was going to go to. There were so many different things that impressed me, and so I thought the fact that this candidate balanced being outspoken, being a leader, taking initiatives, with also being cognizant that listening is really important, and balancing her voice with other people's. I thought that was just a really great combo.
All right, I'm on next. I just wanted to say, sounds like we've been talking so far about F, G, and I. I feel really great about F as well, so I'm going to make a proposal that we appoint F. But there's still a number of other people, so if anyone wants to make any comments about other people, Zia has a proposal for J. We can talk about J or other people. Go ahead, Lauren.
Yeah, my biggest concern with J is that this person is going abroad this spring, and we have to have an alternate step in halfway through the semester, and if it was a new person, it would be kind of hard for them to catch up. And I think SFC generally, we ask this question on the application because we like people to be there for the whole year.
Peter.
Can I just ask a quick question? Does the alternate come in, or do we do another pick in the middle of the year if the person leaves?
Sorry?
Alternate.
Alternate. Okay. That's fine.
Anybody else want to be Julia?
Yeah, I wanted to say that, that's a good point. I believe, I don't know if, at least when I last talked to candidate, E is also planning on going abroad. So thinking about who's going abroad, who's not. Personally, to speak to about candidate E going abroad, I think that since you've also appointed candidate C, that I'm not worried about SSC leadership, because I think those two would be the two people who would be likely co-chairs next year. And so I think, and this candidate, sorry, E, is thinking of going abroad second semester, which is what obviously by second semester I think most people who are new on the committee felt capable of not of being full functioning members. So I think people going abroad in the spring is possible. People going abroad in the fall, concerning. So I guess I haven't seen the applications, so thinking about that. And also I think even if people have not much to say, you should go through every single applicant, because I've seen in the past reading minutes about SFC appointments, because I've gone through this. This is my fourth time going through, I guess, and it's very frustrating to see some candidates never even brought up. And it's even if that means it is indicative that they weren't qualified or something like that. If I was that candidate, I'd be like, you didn't even discuss me. I don't know. And everyone, maybe something would have come up if someone had brought it up. So I think please discuss everyone.
Nobody else to act.
Well, I think that's a really good suggestion. We don't want to miss anything. We want to give everybody their due attention. So this isn't really a process suggestion, but I'd like to suggest that we just go down the list for everybody we haven't talked about, and start with A and go through everybody except for C and E, and probably we've covered G and I. We're fine there, and just actually talk about these candidates.
We're talking about A right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about B.
Oh, sorry. I think I like A. Maybe it's that people on the committee could talk about how he was this semester. I just remember I was at his interview for the appointment, so I don't know.
No. So I think A is definitely a very smart individual, has some good thoughts, was particularly good at sort of telling us when we needed to have stack and when our conversations were getting sort of unproductive or out of hand. On the one hand, on the other hand, they didn't really speak up that much on the committee. Often they wouldn't have a lot to say about a lot of the budgets in front of us. And I think given that it's such a small group of people, there's 7 of us, we had a lot of meetings with 4 or 5, 6 people. I think it's such a small group that you really do want people who, you don't need people who talk all the time, but you do want people who have something to say. Does that sort of
I would
make
say,
sense?
Yeah, that was definitely the case. He didn't talk as much as any of the other members, I would say, but approaching him about that, me and Lauren talked to him about that often, because we were worried that maybe he was overwhelmed as a freshman member, it's a lot of things, and he said it's not that I'm not paying attention, it's not that I don't care, it's that people are saying what I would have said, and I didn't feel like I needed to chime in. And I've also noticed that as the year has gone on, he has begun to talk more, and he was just a freshman coming in on the committee. It's really scary, and I my experience is the longer you're on the committee, the more bold you get, and the more you talk. So I'm sure that if he was reappointed, he would participate more, and I think his thoughts, especially that have been shared later on in the committee, when he's talked up, have always been added a perspective that we didn't have, and I think that's why he felt he needed to speak up, because it was something that wasn't being said. And so he was a great committee member, always showed up, took everything seriously, very prepared. I remember spring budgeting, one of our first days, we were like a little overwhelmed. We had all of these things to do, and he's like, I'm gonna make this spreadsheet so we can like organize all the budgets that we're gonna do, and we ended up using that the entire spring budgeting process. Extremely helpful. So glad he thought of it. He is also always steps up doing like spreadsheets for the math, and which is like something that we forget about. Also, like checking math on SFC, you would think that. But anyway, so yeah, and I would say he added a very like a voice that wasn't there and was very engaged, but also selectively. So.
You said also.
So in a selective way, and I don't know if that. Sometimes I wish that he said more, even if it was just to agree. Yeah, that's what I would say.
So I myself know Peter. I guess for my, because I was at all of them except for Jay. So I think A is really great. But I also think that like people like G and I and F, I would like to have more. And I think A would be the perfect alternate. Like just hands down. Like has experience, can like jump in, especially if E is going abroad. Like seamless. I don't know how he would necessarily feel about that. But I think like when I think of an alternate, he's like hands down the best one, if not the last one. That's what I thought. Peter and then Emma.
You said what I was going to say.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I definitely agree with you, Aaron, about him being the perfect alternate, just because like there wouldn't be enough time to train people, like if they're just getting to the second semester with budgeting. And I don't know. I think something that's important is not just institutional memory, but also making sure there are fresh voices on this committee. Like A, C, and E, I'm sure, like I don't know enough about it, but I'm sure they all did like really good jobs based on what I've heard from everybody who's on the SFC now. And, like I think they'd all be like great additions to the committee next year. But I think that it would just be like a better thing for the committee, because while it did a good job this year and like there were no problems I noticed, like just bringing more fresh voices, having 2 returners and like 3 new people who can carry on and be like returners next time around, I think that's really advantageous. And I also think that with E going abroad, like there's definitely going to need to be an alternate who can just jump in, and I don't think I'd feel comfortable with just appointing somebody to be an alternate knowing they'll have to jump in when we could be having A do that.
Yeah, just to speak to that, one of the duties of the co-chair is to like have the alternate be ready. So like the alternate didn't do this as co-chair, should have, but like the co-chair, especially if it's the co-chair that knows they're going abroad, like will keep whoever the alternate is, someone who's returning or not, like in the loop, ready to jump in. Especially like usually you don't know when you need an alternate, but like in a study abroad situation, like I think regardless of who it was, like them being a returner obviously would be easier, but like they would be ready to go by the time like they wouldn't just be like seen for the first time, have no idea what's going on. So.
Anybody else want to kind of start? Maybe talk about another applicant?
Yeah, I was at this interview and Beast, and I mean I just felt like they didn't. I mean, I'm pretty much gonna say the same exact thing that was said about me when I applied for SFC last year when I was a freshman. I feel like they need to get more experience on campus and more experience in general with budgeting and allocation. And that kind of stuff. Laura.
Yeah, her answers were very kind of vague. She said getting groups involved maybe 6 times and didn't really go into more detail than that about what she meant. She was really like nice and enthusiastic, but I just think there are much stronger applicants.
Patrick and Rachel.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo that, and I didn't really always understand what some of her answers were, because they just were really vague, and I wasn't really sure like exactly what she was trying to say in certain situations. And I just, I think they're
Rachel.
I did not find her to be one of the strongest interviews that I attended.
Okay. Anybody want to talk about applicant D?
Why is that?
So diplomatic.
Laura.
a lot of phrases like detached, objective, reason, not having any bias. So I mean, yeah, I guess I think it's a little naive and not really a good sign to believe that we can make objective decisions on SOC because we all have different relationships with different groups on campus. We all have different experiences and perspectives that inform the way that we think about what a beneficial program is. And I was just concerned about that, and I don't think that's a good way to look at decision making on that SOC.
Anyone else want to talk about D? Anybody want to talk about H?
Yeah, me and Ashley actually received, this person also applied for SFC coordinator. What?
Who?
Oh, sorry, I thought we were talking about H.
H, yes.
Are we? Okay. This person also applied for SFC coordinator. And me and Ashley were just like extremely impressed by his interview. We didn't think he really fit that position very well. We just really could see him on SFC. And I was really hoping that this interview would be similar to the one that he gave to us previously. But it actually wasn't. I was actually a little disappointed at that interview. It wasn't quite as like, I don't know, it didn't seem quite as passionate or as like, as much of a critical thinker like he did in this initial interview. So I just want to reflect that we previously thought he was a really good applicant for this position.
Yeah, H was another candidate who used words like detached and objective. And also, I was a little concerned that he was talking about how he wants to go into a career in finance and get experience with budgets and stuff as a reason for being on the committee. I think it's important that people want to be on SOCs and want to improve campus life and get involved with Oberlin.
Yeah, I think it's just, it's important to say like we're not really looking for people who are good at like finance or like math. We're good with people who can like are critical thinkers or like, good communicators, can work with student groups, things like that. So it's a little disappointing.
Okay. Anybody want to talk about H or anyone want to go to J? Emma, then Zia.
Well, I think the thing for me about H and about J was that neither of them gave like a bad interview. Like they had answers to questions, like nothing was bad about it at all. Just neither of them stood out to me. And because I went to I think I went to 7 interviews, so I'm making that number up completely because I like the number 7. So I might have done more or less entirely possible. But I know that there were interviews that I went to where like a candidate stood out and I thought after the interview like, wow, I would like to vote for them. I want them on the SOC. They look really good. And then for H and J, it was just kind of like, that was a fine interview. So I don't know, they weren't bad candidates. I just was not as impressed with them as I was with like G or I, to be honest.
Zia.
Well, I want to talk about J. I propose that we should point to them, and I still really stand by that. I agree that G, F, and I are all very strong candidates, but I think J, is a person that does have a technical background, but at the same time comes from the low-income background and has a very strong focus towards representing low-income communities on campus, which is, I think, of vital importance. Personally, they have come to me a lot to talk about what kind of aspects of Oberlin and navigating Oberlin they've struggled with, and I think it's a really important thing to have on SFC. So that's something that I really am pushing for personally.
What?
Yeah, I just want to say I don't think technical experience is that important at all. I think there are skills that are way, way more important than that, and it's not really necessary at all to have that.
Anybody want to jump on? Okay. So, if I may then, looking back on this, we seem to have not been very excited by B, D, or H. So we have proposals right now for, let me just finish a second mark. We have proposals for G, I, F, and J. I feel like there was some disagreement about I, so I should have necessarily been the first one that we would go for. We haven't talked about F a whole lot. I don't know, do people... Yeah, I'm just commenting that. I think we should go with G first. and then move on.
So what we've done in the past, and I think makes it a little easier and also to help us sort of think of the committee as a whole, is proposed slates of candidates. So proposing 3 candidates and an alternate, and we can have a couple different variations. Makes it a little easier.
I think one thing maybe to think about when thinking about these slates is I know candidate I is going to be a senior. I don't know, and I know candidates E and C will both be juniors next year. I think, as Lauren said, having people who are younger on the committee is important, and so is having people who are older. So one of the things that I liked about it was that they had a lot of experience on campus and could bring that to the committee, but also to think about sort of in general where people are in their like time at Oberlin, and like what that can give to like the balance committee.
Julia.
Yeah, also I would just remind people to look at people's applications, see if they're going abroad, because I don't think everyone's been confirmed if they're going abroad or not. And then also, yeah, like just if we're gonna do slates, like taking a look at, like obviously this is up to Senate, but like taking a look at like as a whole, how the committee is gonna look, like demographic wise, representing certain interests on campus, etc. Yeah, that's
Proposals or forming? Paul, go for it.
I propose that we elect candidates F, G, and I to be on SFC, and candidate A to be an alternate.
Sounds good.
I propose that we, it's not going to be much different, elect F, G, I, and J as an alternate.
J. Okay. Anybody else? Paul.
I'd like to be on sec.
Yeah.
So, Jay, someone had mentioned that Jay would be going abroad next semester or second semester. So, I don't think that would be an ideal alternate position.
Okay, that's what I was like.
I'd like to amend Hope's proposal with that in mind and appoint.
Make a new proposal.
Actually, make a new proposal. I'd like to appoint F, I, and J with A as an alternate.
F, I, and J. Interesting. Bella, and then Peter. Get back to the stack.
Okay, I think that the problem looking at Zia's proposal, actually, the problem for me with appointing Jay is not that Jay is a bad applicant, it's just that E is already going abroad, and if we've already appointed E, and if E and J both go abroad second semester, we would need 2 alternates. And I don't know if we're allowed to appoint 2 alternates. So the way I see it, and like even if we did, that would be like a lot of like people coming in for like spring budgeting. So the way I see it, like I don't think we should appoint 2 people who are not going to be there for spring semester for that extra.
All right, we got Julia next.
Yeah, just direct response to that. How I got onto the SFC was that 2 people were going abroad my freshman year, and so one of them was the alternate who took the place, and then Senate held another interview thing, and I was the next person. So just so you know, it's like Senate can't do that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Peter, I'm sorry, Peter. I skipped you, didn't I?
Nah,
That's my bad.
Go nowhere.
I propose we do, in light of Julie's comment and last year, people going abroad. Could I propose F, G, and J, and then A as an alternate? F, G, and J, with A as an alternate.
All right. What? Is that okay with you?
We can remove that one.
So removed. Julia.
Yeah, sorry, I have to keep talking. Just to make sure that my last comment wasn't misleading, like, yes, Senate has the power to, like, appoint more than one, like, if a lot of people leave, have another round of interviews, but also, like, losing a lot of people halfway through the year does have an impact on, like, committee dynamic, and, like, there's a lot that you learn just, like, you know, from, like, dealings with organizations through ad hoc that, like, you might miss if you were gone the first semester. Even if you like knew all the bylaws, etc., like you wouldn't have the experience of working with the committee. Yeah.
Sounds good. Kiki.
I'm going to propose A, F, and I, G as an alternate. Because I feel like, I don't know, if you think this candidate is good enough to like fill the space, knowing that there will like be a need for an alternate with E leaving, I think that they're going to just start out to continue in that space, especially in light of what people in SFC have said about their participation and actually like listening well enough to not have to repeat themselves, but also like bring new stuff to the table.
So, shall we get to voting? Question: how does this work? To direct respond. Kiki responded first, so
maybe we should write them in order from like first to like, our first pick, second pick, third pick, and then see tally it up, or like everybody should do that.
Like on a piece of paper?
Yeah, or we can just I don't know. So like we can't do that.
Peter, what do you got?
If we have competing proposals, which these are, we vote on which one to vote on first, and then we vote on them.
Okay. We vote on which one to vote on. That doesn't make sense with what I've heard of the bylaws. There's a list of documents. Rachel.
Can we only vote for one, or is it the sort of thing where we vote for as many as we want, and then the one that gets the
You
most
vote.
votes?
Yes or no to each of them. So we vote on which one we want to vote first, and then slate 1, yes or no, slate 2, yes or no, slate 3, yes or no.
Oh, okay.
Alright, Emma, you're on stack. You can take your time though, because you're looking this all up, which is good.
Yeah, it says vote 102 times in the bylaws, so it's to take us a minute. So you said what?
It says vote 102
Just
times.
look at it. My bylaws are weird right now because I've gone through and edited them. Because somebody had to put the edited version on the website. Oh, wait, no. Here it is. Okay. Voting. On a process adjustment. First, we have to take general feelings. There's multiple. Senate shall vote on multiple non-conflicting proposals, or these are conflicting. Senate shall vote on conflicting proposals by using approval voting to select the order in which proposal shall be voted on. That should be plural, which proposals shall be voted on. And then we just do a hand vote.
Okay. So, in that case, does anyone have a alternate order than the order in which they were proposed? Would they like to fight through the works? No. And general feelings on voting on slate 1? Okay.
So what happens if we accept slate 1, then what happens to the rest of the proposals? It's just game over.
Yep. Yeah, that's why you vote on the order to vote on first. So which one do you want to vote on first? We can just propose one vote.
Okay. So, that's the way the bylaws work right now. We can always change them at some point, but not right now. Next year. So, yeah, all in favor of slate 1? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, it's a hand up? Wait.
Actually, aye with A.
Yeah.
9.
Okay, all opposed.
1, 2, 3.
Abstentions? Nope, because there's not enough people for that.
When's the last one?
Abstentions, 0.
Recusals.
Recusals. Anyone not here recusing themselves? I guess by default, 3 of them are
Oh, okay.
recusing themselves.
Oh, we can write that.
No, you don't have to write that. So, that's our SFC then. Our SFC is candidates C.
You can take names now.
Oh, okay. Then can I have the honor? Or
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, everyone.
Don't say what letter each candidate was.
Okay. So, in no particular order, our new SFC is Scott Hulber, Duran McDaniel, Mimi Stern, Natalia Garcia Sanabria, Srijit Josh, Ghosh,
Gosh.
and Alejandro Belgrave as an alternate.
Wait, how do you say that name before Alejandro?
Srijit, S-R-I-J-I-T.
S-R-I-J-I-T.
G-H-O-S-H. H-O-S-H. All right. Congratulations, everyone. Last.
Oh, I charge your sons.
SMCs have that thing.
I thought SSC always say solidarity.
All right, everyone. Do I have approval to move on to office hour reports? Announcements. Time to move on to announcements. General feelings. Announcements.
Last semester.
Solid. Announcements. Begin with tabling.
So I just wanted to announce that you guys that I looked at some of the scheduling with Mud, and after some reflection, with kind of the struggles we've had with interviews and like getting people to come to interviews, as well as Rock the Block was kind of sad today, guys, and some other things, I don't really want to set up slots to try and force people to come and table, so that won't be happening, but TGIF this Friday, please be there. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
If I can say something on that front, if we don't get this through, senators can't be paid. I won't be on Senate next year, but I still think this is really important in a sense that it makes it accessible for people who put in a bajillion hours and do like important work. So I think this should be something that we're all actually concerned about, even though I think most of us are not returning to Senate. Peter.
Can I ask a question? How many signatures do we have on the referendum so far? Or I guess.
Hand sign it. So we have 450 and we need 1,498. So, thank you.
We're a little bit short of that.
A little bit.
Let's do the math.
Julie.
Yes, actually, the SFC one is like strangely the exact opposite of that. Like
Yeah,
almost the
good point,
exact
yeah.
numbers of that. So anyway, and I remember I came earlier and was like, we'll help you guys, we'll help us. And I know that you guys did do the gift card thing. And if you want SFC to put up money to do the gift card thing, like I think we definitely owe you, so we can do that. And we also would like to get paid next year. Well, we won't be on it, but those people that we just appointed would love to be paid. So if you guys want to do like a tabling exchange party, not party, or we could do it by party, maybe that would be successful. I don't know. But anyway, SFC is here to help you guys with your referendum because you've helped us. And also, it's not done yet, so please help us more.
How far?
Julia, we can talk later.
Okay, cool, we can talk. But we just need 400 more.
We have a clarifying question. Go ahead, Sarah.
What are your guys' deadlines for this?
There aren't any deadlines. In the years past, it has gone to like through into the summer.
Peter. No, Emma. And Peter.
That was like a hand gesture.
Sorry, I just see your hand gesture. What do you got?
It goes until the end of the year. It's in our constitution. I don't know if it's in your guys'.
Maybe that's
So we
because
did
it
that,
went
but
into
we
the summer.
Emma, then Lauren.
I don't know about the tabling thing, Mia. I feel like at this point, like, I mean, I understand that there's been like really bad turnout in the past, and that's like on all of us, and like shame on us. But like, I feel like at this point we have like 2 weeks left, and we have to hit 1,000 signatures. Like, I don't want to like tell you that you should schedule this now, even if people won't show up. But like, I think all 15 of us have a responsibility for like the people who will be on Senate next year to like, you know, get it together and like get those 1,000 signatures, even if it means tabling when we don't want to. So I feel like we should do that personally.
Mia.
Like, I'm really happy to do whatever. Like, I have really loved all the work that I've done, and I'm happy to schedule times. But like, the truth is, like, the amount of time that I've put into Senate over the last couple of weeks is really unsustainable going to finals. And so if I enter into anything, I'm just not going to do it if I don't know that like you guys are gonna like that we're gonna be actually doing it. So that's not like an ultimatum. It's more just that's where I am. So I would love it if you guys came and talked to me, or if you had other ideas. So yeah, I just want to like
Well, oh, as soon as we're ready, so I can take that. Also on the to finish off that subject, the committee stuff hopefully will be done after today. So if there's a lot of time on my hand, I'd be happy to help out the next generation of senators. Anyway, Paul's interview is up there. So I'm excited. I would like to take a moment where everybody can consult. Everybody's confirmed. That's beautiful. I just want to remind everyone of the spreadsheet that I put together that you're shared on. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scheduled. 2 of them have happened. We need 10 more interviews scheduled. Everybody picked their other senator. I'm glad to see that. But please take some time to schedule your interviews. I think we as a body, I want to say that we've learned a lot this semester, and I do not want to see it going to waste. So please pass on that knowledge. Anyone want to make a comment on that, or should we move on? Okay. General feelings on the office hour reports. Groovy. That's good. Anybody had office hours? I mean, anybody had reports from office hours? Hopefully you don't have office hours. No reports.
So this didn't technically happen during my office hours, and I brought this up with some of the senators who were here before, but so, Celerity is having asked, some people from Celerity asked me about the possibility of sending out a student list email about headphones because a lot of people took them. And in thinking about it, like, we have a very strict email policy, so I don't necessarily think that is the job of Senate, but like, I think that needs to happen. And so I was kind of wondering what you guys thought about that.
Really, people think a lot about that, so Lauren, go for it.
Given that it's probably a small percentage of people who took headphones, I don't think it's worth sending out to the entire student body. Furthermore, they should have the IDs of people who took headphones.
Got their IDs from it?
Yeah.
I mean, they knew this might be a concern going into this, and I don't think that the entire student body needs to get an email about this.
Hope.
Actually, no.
Ari.
I'm with Lauren as usual.
Zia.
Yeah, I'm with Lauren.
Okay, Rachel.
I talked to my friend who's involved with Celerity. There's 20 people who haven't turned in their headphones. The headphones cost about $55 each, and it'll be charged their term bill if they don't return them. So it's like about some information.
Okay,
Question.
Okay, Ariel. Oh, you can clarify the question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Will it be charged to the people who took the headphones term bills, or like the people who run Celerity's term bills?
Oh, the people who took them because they have their T number.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Well, then,
That's
sorry.
Well, I guess they wouldn't, right? Because they don't know who. Because sorry.
Yeah.
Totally. Because I think they can't pinpoint who it was because they don't have the IDs. Yeah, people are very new to that.
They have the numbers?
All right, let's get
They gave their
back to stack. Julia is not on the stack. Ariel's on the stack.
Yeah, just because Celerity was emailing SFC about the charging term bill thing before the event occurred, in my understanding, how they would know people had the headphones is because they left their IDs at the Celerity event, and if people took their IDs back without returning their headphones, it might be a little ambiguous whose term bill is going to be charged. Or like where that money is going to come from, because it was supposed to be if you didn't return your headphones, you wouldn't get your ID, and then they would know.
All right, Ari.
So they have the T numbers of the people who didn't return headphones. Is that correct?
Direct response.
That is what I heard.
Oh. So why can't they find out who it is and send 20 emails? Direct response to me?
Yeah, no, so having their T numbers would be dependent on them having the IDs, which is what we're not sure about, I think. Because, I think they have some of people's IDs, but one of the problems is people were taking their IDs and, still had the headphones. So, I know they still have some IDs, but they definitely don't, necessarily, because I think some people also turned in their headphones and didn't have their IDs, but, because they lost a lot of IDs. That was, a really big problem, is that people couldn't get them and left and were angry.
All right, I have myself on stack next. So, I would hate to leave our fellow students in a bad situation like this. That being said, I don't think it's Senate's responsibility to send out this email. That also being said, and given the first thing I said, let's talk, or anybody have any suggestions based on, sorry, that was really confusing. Anybody have any suggestions of other ways that Celerity can like pursue this question so that they can, you know, not be in debt a lot of money, but also like not make the Senate overstep its bounds in a weird way. I'll put you on stack too. I have Lauren on next.
I don't know. I guess they can poster and stuff. I mean, I think that if students were returning their headphones or not returning their headphones and taking their IDs, I think that's kind of Celerity's fault. Like they should have been on top of that, and especially they knew going forward that this could be a problem, and they like checked with OST about charging term bills. Like they knew this would be an issue. So.
Kiki.
Yeah, I don't think this is that's the thing that this is, you know, about. Celerity is the
So noted. Emma.
I also think it's worth considering that people don't read our emails about important things. Like, I asked people whether they read the one about like the strategic like planning thing, like that long term, the SPSC, and like everybody asked was like, oh, I saw that it was in my inbox, but I clicked on it so the dot would go away. So like if they're not going to read the important emails we send out, why would they read our email that's like, please turn your Celerity headphones back in? Also, I think anybody who cared enough to steal the Celerity headphones like wouldn't bring them back just because Senate asked nicely. So like I just think like one, it's not our place. Two, like even if we were to do something, it would be like horrifically ineffective and just like another like incident of us like overusing this email system so that people don't read important emails. So I don't know, like I know that Celerity's been cabling in mud. Like maybe they can cable at TPMF, I don't know. Like I don't know how to fix this. I just don't think that it's our job to fix it either, or that we would be able to if we tried.
Lauren.
Oh,
Lauren's striking Zia.
Yeah, I mean, they can use campus media, or like Lauren said, they can poster. I don't know, it wasn't a huge oversight issue. I saw staff just like hanging around watching the show. I was at Celerity. So like,
I got it. No, sorry.
No.
I have Ari then Anders.
I mean, like, I also feel really bad, like, because, like, these kids put so much, like, unpaid time into throwing this event, and now they're gonna get, like, $50, like, it's just really sad. You know what I mean? Like, I feel bad for the Celerity organizers, because they're gonna be negative paid to do all the work that they did. And I think a lot of people, I mean, personally, I don't think I liked the event, but like, I think a lot of people had fun. I think like, I just feel really bad. I'm sorry.
Okay, Anders?
I also feel pretty bad for them, but at the same time, I walked by and there were like 40 headphones like laying out on this tarp and no one was around. In the middle of Wilder Bowl, and like I saw them and I was like, I could take one of those if I was a bad person. So it's possible they lost some of them before the event.
Alright, so anybody else want to talk about this, or should we do Senate?
Move on.
Let's move on. General feelings on going to committee reports. Solid. Paul has 2 thumbs up, so we better move. Committee reports, anybody? Whoa, okay. Hope and then Kiara.
Okay, so me and I went to the first, probably only meeting of the Student Life Committee, and we brought the issue of the financial policy change to the committee, and like gave them an update as to like what the student movement momentum is, and like also like what Student Senate has been working on, and like been looking to address like the issues of the financial aid policy change. And the committee was very receptive to it, and they would like in future to be like a place in which like faculty or students could feel like they could bring their experiences, and like the committee was interested in facilitating discussion. I mean, I don't know, Mia, maybe you can like fill in some gaps where I'm missing, but like it was a very positive experience, and I think that in future, especially next semester, as this conversation continues, that the student life community could be like a good place to start or continue dialogue.
Cool. Kiana.
On a related note, we had admissions and financial aid committee meeting this past week, and
What you said? What?
Admissions and financial aid committee, and the topic of that was, it was like a not an emergency meeting, but like an extra meeting that was called to talk about financial aid policy changes and such. And basically, what it was is there's this guy. I don't know if he's like the school's economist or like something. He balances all the budgets and does all that work, and he's at those meetings. But he basically just gave a presentation with this other lady who's like big time on the committee, and it's a presentation that they're going to be giving. They plan 2 different forum sort of things. It should be happening this next week, I believe. One of which will be like them giving this PowerPoint presentation, really like giving everybody who wants to come details about what the college's like budget and finance look like, and how they like allot finance, like whole like allotting financial aid process, and what like this change actually really looks like. What different like changes in your aid package could look like. So that's the first presentation. The second forum is gonna be more like a student like talk back or like listening session. Yeah.
Awesome. Anyone else have any comments?
I went to the Committee for Environmental Sustainability on Tuesday, and they had a conversation about trying to have an addition of a sustainability requirement in the curriculum at Oberlin College and how that would look like. I think if they were to do anything like that, it would be years down the road, but that's what that was what was being discussed at the meeting.
Cool. Thanks for the update. Anybody else have any more committee stuff, or shall we move on to working group reports? General feelings on moving on to working group reports. That's exciting. All right. Working. Anybody want to talk about that? Well, we had the last Sustainable Transportation Working Group meeting. It was pretty solid. We're still working out how the grant is going to work with all that. We're also creating like a transportation-focused organization that'll kind of informally like be a volunteer recruitment arm for a lot of the issues and the work that we've been doing. So that is the update for that group. Anybody else have anything to say?
Environmental sustainability had what I believe was the last meeting. Once again, we forgot to call Mia at this meeting. I feel really bad now that I remember that again. I'm really sorry, Mia. I'm really sorry. But the news, other than I'm sorry about not including Mia, is that we finished a resolution and it's all on the agenda, and it would be really cool if we could get to that. So just heads up, there are things.
See ya.
Actually, do this one. The Student Health Working Group will be having its last meeting this Thursday at 7 p.m. in Ezra.
Anybody else? Is South Campus meeting this week?
Oh, I don't.
Whoever is going to do.
Oh, okay. Do you have anything else to say about it?
Oh, okay, South Campus. I guess we'll have our last meeting today, this week, on Thursday at lunch in Zascom.
Okay.
And plans TV.
Sounds good. Peter.
So EMT working group, I've been going crazy on this for a couple weeks. We talked to the EMT instructor at Lorraine Joint Vocational School, as well as their program director, about bringing the EMT course to Oberlin. They seemed really amiable to the idea, and I think amiable was the right word to use there. Essentially, they're down to bring in a course that would require a few off-campus trips to use the ambulance that they have at Lorraine Joint Vocational School, only a couple miles away, and to get people to the testing center for both their practicals and for their written tests. So you would get fully certified as a nationally registered EMT. The only problem is this course is going to cost money, and apparently no part of the school has that somehow. All of our tuition dollars are thrown into a black hole. So trying to figure out how we can drum up between $1,100
and 13, 14 thousand bucks for a course that would have 15 people get not only credit but also get nationally registered as EMTs at Oberlin College, and textbooks should be included in the cost, so it would literally be entirely free to the students other than the cost of tuition, which I think would be awesome. And I think that Oberlin should really have something like this. I've been talking to the physical education department, or athletics, I don't really know what they're officially called, and we're trying to set up a meeting with the bio department, and we're trying to get maybe some kind of deal to co-sponsor this course. But if any of you know of any way we could get some money together for this, I've been looking into grants to bring a course in from the state of Ohio. If anyone has any ideas of how we can get this together, I want to try to run it for second semester of next year.
Mia has a clarifying question and answers.
Sure.
Do you have a ballpark of like how much you are looking for?
All I know is the overall price is going to be between $11,000 and $13,500 bucks for the entire course, which is less than you pay a professor for a course, I'd probably guess, but I don't know that exact number. And I don't know how much either bio or athletics is going to pay for it.
Anders.
You might contact Skidmore Student Government Association about, I think they started with grants, but Skidmore College.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome, thank you.
Anybody else have anything to say on working group reports? No. General business. I'm moving to decisions. Beautiful. Paul's giving double thumbs again. All right. We have.
Ooh.
Yes.
Is that something that you could ad hoc for, Peter?
That's something the student activity fee would be willing to pay for in any part.
I'm on OST, so I think that given the things that we do finance, it's not that far off. We do finance, or they do, Lauren can speak more to this, they do finance student run organizations, that do have like overheading, like faculty, like for example, club sports, they go on with club sports, and club sports uses like faculty, so that's always an option.
Okay, well, y'all can talk about that after. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna jump into the committee appointments deal. Let's all consult the emails I sent you over the course of the day. Sorry about that again. We're gonna start, unless anyone has any objections, with the Anti Sweatshop Purchasing Committee. We have 3 people that have applied. They in the AS/PC appointments key, they're listed A, B, and C. If you cannot access that email, let me know, or that thing, let me know. And we have 2 open spots. But if we really love all 3 of them, we can kind of push for that 3rd one. But I think we should limit to 2 right now. Ari will start us off.
I have a question because I thought I was appointed to this as a senator, but it hasn't met, so yeah. I didn't have one. So I'm kind of like that's great that people are psyched on it, but what the fuck are they doing?
We can double check and confirm that. I think they have been meeting. Izzy seems to actually. So I don't know.
So they just didn't invite me.
Maybe they didn't get the email that time.
So sad. Whatever. All right.
Okay. So anybody want to make any comments that were at the interviews? If not, I can make some comments. I'm a snake.
Yeah, I was at the interview for candidate A, but after reading the interviews for candidate B, I think the one I was most impressed with was actually candidate B. We talked a lot about actual experience, personal life experience, interacting with work with anti-sweatshop and knowing people who worked in sweatshop and having a very legitimate on the ground connection to this kind of work. And so I think they brought a really interesting and really valuable perspective, or they would bring a really interesting, valuable perspective to the committee. I mean, A and C are both fine, but I think B was the one that stood out to me the most.
I wasn't at this interview, but candidate B was in my exco,
and they constantly brought very, very interesting things to the table. They are they're critical thinkers, and they are a very caring person. And even though I wasn't at this interview, I would wholeheartedly appoint candidate B to this committee.
Given that, I'm going to make a proposal that we appoint candidate B to the anti-sweatshop purchasing committee. General feelings? All in favor? Aye.
Okay, that's 12 ayes.
Oh yeah.
Who's missing right now? Wait, so no one's missing right now?
Jesse,
Oh,
Harrison, and
besides
You
that.
have to say all opposed.
No, Rachel.
Right. All opposed? Rachel's right there. All opposed. Oh, sorry, I'm not opposed. All opposed. Abstentions. All right. 12-0-0. 2-0. Oh, yeah. I guess 3. All right. Anybody want to make a comment on another applicant? Based on what jumps out at them. See ya.
I was at C's interview, and I know this candidate personally, and whereas the candidate who just appointed seems to have a lot more, knowledge, a lot of knowledge in labor relations in the East Asian region. C has a big focus. They were just elected one of the co-chairs of J Street, which is concerned with the Israel-Palestine conflict. So they have a lot of knowledge in terms of what's going on there in terms of labor relations and about all the jobs being outsourced out of Israel to Palestine, and I guess like the tearing down of Palestinian settlements and all that. So if what we're going for with this committee is, someone that can represent, or 2 people that can represent different areas of geopolitical labor relations, I think it would be a good idea to appoint C. Just my 2 cents.
Alright, I'm next. Do you want to do this? Sure. Okay, you can go next too. I definitely, I would support C over A. I thought C seemed a little more interested as well, and has room in the schedule. I also think A was a solid person, but since we have the 2 spots, and I don't think A is necessarily going above and beyond, I would definitely recommend C as the other appointment. Do you want to talk about
Yeah, I mean, you basically said kind of what I was going to say, because so I wasn't at either of the interviews that we were talking about right now, but skimming through the answers, it seems like candidate C was a little bit more involved in different issues surrounding it, and just some of the answers in here seem like this person has a genuine interest in getting involved, but definitely doesn't have the basis, which isn't necessarily a bad thing at all. But because we have 2 seats, if other people think that this person seemed just really enthusiastic and just really, really wanted to be on this committee, that would honestly convince me. But depending on how the other senators feel, this person seemed like they were interested but not dying to be on this committee, and we have 2 other really great candidates. I think that makes this decision not too hard.
I'll make a proposal that we appoint candidate C as the other. All general feelings? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Alright, that's 13.
It's 13?
It's 12. It's 12.
Oh.
I wish so.
Oh.
That's not that.
You count, don't worry.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, that is that. We can move on a little bit to, drumroll please, the Committee on Environmental Sustainability. We have 2 candidates for 1 position. There's 3 people in another thing. We already appointed 1. And my preliminary comment would be they're both really qualified. I think they'd both be great on the committee. I also noted that candidate A thought if another candidate or another person was interested and involved, Candidate A is already very involved with environmental work on campus.
This is the environmental sustainability?
Yes, CES. Candidate A is already involved and explicitly said if another person wants to be involved, they would be happy to give that position to them. So that's something that was said in the So candidate A said that she's already involved in this work. She can be on the committee, she has time for it, she'd be great at it. But also another candidate who's also interested and will also fit well might be better off because she's already so involved. Paul.
Being on the environmental or this committee, something that is kind of an issue or was an issue for me starting out is they're currently rewriting the school's environmental policy, and when I came in September, they had already been working on it for a couple of years, and it was kind of hard for me to kind of get right in and get caught up and be up to speed. I know that they're hopefully going to finish that this, like at the end of the year, and they're going to start working on the plan to become carbon neutral by 2025. And I think since candidate B, first of all, seems enthusiastic, and second of all, is going to be a third year next year, and would be able to be on that committee for 2 years as opposed to 1, it would really be helpful for the committee to have someone who's going to be there for 2 years. So I would recommend appointing candidate B.
Anybody have anything else? If not, I'll make a proposal that we appoint candidate B. General feelings. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Abstentions?
Are you raising your hand?
Beautiful. We have another one. So let's move on. What do we got next? Musical studies double degree. We can only appoint one right now, but it was recommended to me by one of the chairs to appoint an alternate as well. So I would suggest we do that. Emma.
I think the one that makes the most sense for us to appoint is, oh wait, I lost the key. What I looked for, there was one candidate who was a former musical studies major who is now a double degree student. And I think, oh, there's the folder. I think they would be a really good candidate for us to apply because it's a musical studies / double degree program. So this candidate, that's candidate B, by the way. So you all know who I'm talking about. This candidate just brings both of the perspectives that we're looking for, musical studies and double degree, and had some thoughtful things to say about both of those in his interview, even though I wasn't there. So I would support appointing him.
Ari.
I think we should keep B for our alternate and appoint C just because like I strongly want to make the case that like women, and especially women of color in the conservatory or in any peripheral way involved with the conservatory are significantly disadvantaged and underrepresented and underserved. So that's my like strong recommendation. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm just gonna agree with Ari. I mean, like, I don't know, like, the, you know, the, like, the inner workings of the conservatory, but I was at both B and C's interview, and I thought that B was a good candidate, but I definitely think that C, I recommend C over B, just because, I mean, I know C personally, and, like, they're a very, like, conscientious and, like, involved person. I think that they would be a good addition to this committee.
Okay. I had myself on staff. I think they'd both be fine. C, in all honesty, seemed not incredibly, but seemed very disinterested when we just interviewed her. That was my feeling. So B seemed more enthusiastic by far. So I just want to throw that into the sort of equation. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say that in comparison, I think that I think I'm saying that people. yeah, I think. Okay, so candidate A and candidate. Sorry guys. B. Candidate A and B seemed like, I really liked that in both those interviews they had specific things that they had opinions on and like thought could be improved in different ways. And I thought that made their interviews pretty strong. Like I think candidate A talked about advising, and candidate B was talking about like their specific involvement with Tamara. And so I think both of those would be really strong candidates, and it would be really hard to choose.
Okay. Zia.
I just want to say that C seems to have a good amount of leadership experience, and they're also, I think they're dual degrees in piano and politics. So I think that's important for someone that's acting as a mediator and sitting on a committee, and when there's only one spot, I think that's really significant.
And
This is B.
I've got
No, I'm talking about C.
You're talking about C?
Yeah.
Okay, I was at interviews for A and C. Yeah, I thought C was very strong. She has experience doing a sort of like governing type position, which could be pretty relevant to doing this. Although it is true that A, and I can't speak for B, but A certainly had specific ideas as to what he would like to change, but I don't know. I would be in support of C.
Anders?
Just like a few quick clarifying questions. Are these committees paid? And how do people go about, like, you just like see a poster or like an email and decide to apply, or do people like recommend you? Or?
Direct response. So it's a mix of things. Candidate C heard about our committee by the kind of email that we sent out, which was really exciting. Whereas candidate A was referred to by his advisor. So it's just kind of a mixture of like happening to see that, which is like a really imperfect system that kind of pisses me off. But it's like either you know people or you just happen to see the email.
I guess I'm just like a little, I haven't sat in the interviews obviously, but I'm a little confused as to like how someone could be like not interested in the position if they're applying, but maybe. And I think people having sat on like other committees that are like appointment things, I know people express interest in different ways, and also their moods on different days like vary. And like I know personally I could be super excited about something, and the next day like I can't have that same energy. That doesn't mean I'm like less invested. But yeah, so people that hear people talking about, I don't know.
Cool. So as I'm not a con student, I want to like completely like defer to Ari's superior knowledge. And if Ari seems to think that, or if Ari says that women of color are particularly disenfranchised in the con, then I accept that as being 100% true. And I think that being the situation, we should definitely appoint candidate C, because it's like important that we use the limited power we have as student government to work to really make sure that students who are disenfranchised by the administration are not in any way that we can. And so this isn't a proposal, but I think that we should, I guess I'll propose, I'm just going to propose that we appoint candidate C and make candidate B our alternate, because I think the two of them seem to be more qualified than candidate A.
Okay.
My proposal was going to be exactly that.
Awesome. I myself on stack right afterwards. Yeah, I'm totally in favor of that proposal. I've also done several interviews recently, and that was like one of the last ones of the long string. So that could have all been my mood getting in the way. And I appreciate what you said about that, Anders. And yeah, I'm not going to let my ego get in the way, so I'd be there for that. Go ahead, Phil.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that like, I was at the interview too, and I understand where you're coming from. I mean, I thanks Anders for like bringing that point, but like I definitely, I mean, I'm not trying to say that like somehow that shouldn't be taken into account, but I just want to validate what
Aaron was saying, so I felt that too. But I also think that that you should appoint C or D.
All right, then we shall. Let's vote. I'm gonna do it.
I would love nothing more.
Oh,
Okay. All in favor of appointing candidate C to this committee and having candidate B as our alternate? All in favor? All opposed? All abstaining?
Cool.
It passes 12-0-0.
I love that.
0. Yes.
Yep. All right, next one, long list of fun. Wait, I just got a message from Mahmoud about this planning committee, so let me just read that really fast. The steering committee is apparently going to be open until Wednesday. Possibly. But I think we still have 9 seats, and we have people that have already interviewed, not all are doing more interviews, so let's talk about appointing 3 people that we have before us. Yeah, I don't know how that works. Yeah.
The email didn't have a date on it. How do we know it's until Wednesday?
I think that's what the administration is talking
Okay.
about.
That's poor communication on our part.
That's poor communication everywhere. All right, let's talk about
Wait, but how can why would we appoint people if the application's still open?
I don't know
'Cause I don't
how
wanna
we
do
can
it
appoint
in a-
people.
I don't want to do an emergency plenary either. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't want to do an emergency plenary. I think that if the administration was better about communication, then we would have, like, we can still leave it open, and if, like, really necessary, we can, like, appoint more people because it's an important thing. But I also think we have 3 really strong candidates before us and 9 seats. And yeah, like that's what I'm saying. So at the very least, if we don't get caught in a situation where we can't have an emergency plenary, I want to make sure we have people for the administration to consider on this really important committee. Because I don't want to leave the fate of like student input in the steering, like in the strategic plan, on the chance that like we may or may not have time for an emergency plenary. That's just my opinion. Go ahead, Nick.
Could we start this out on the note then that, like, as we're discussing, if there are candidates that just seem like obvious choices, like we should obviously appoint them, but maybe like if there are candidates, and I haven't read through some of these minutes yet, but like if there are candidates that we have concerns about, maybe tabling those but appointing like the obvious ones.
That's fair. All right, so let's talk about them. Anders and Paul.
Wait, is this the strategic planning steering? Okay. Who else is on that committee besides students? Like, initial clarifying question.
Captain Stewart.
Eric would know the answer.
Like, is
I
it
don't know
like
the answer.
administrator? Is it like alums?
Well, as far as we know, and like we don't know a huge amount of it about this because like transparency is an issue. As far as we know, there's going to be some student representatives as well as faculty representatives, administrative representatives, and I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, trustees. And there may or may not be alumni. I cannot remember, but it's definitely going to be a lot more like non-students than students for sure. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. And then I guess the second clarifying part is, are the other people, like non-student members of this committee, getting paid for their time on this committee? Anyone know? Because I sent an email to Patrick Stewart, very respectfully saying that if they really wanted to, like, because the email said, like, we're searching for like a diverse pool of applicants, which is like great, but if you can't pay people for their time, then like there's really only like a certain population that is going to be able to do that. And like I know there are like budgeting issues, but I got a response from Stewart 5 days later. And she like didn't really talk about that. She was like, yeah, I would love your help. Like anyway, like sorry, I don't know. It wasn't. If someone could talk to her about that specific issue, I don't know if she like
I'd love to
really understands that fully. And I think it's really important that like I feel like it would almost be counterproductive to have if we're trying to like represent the student body and like talk about issues of like about financial aid, like why would we have 3 people who like don't need to get paid? Like I don't know. Like I would be on it, but I'm probably going abroad, so yeah.
Alright, we have Paul on Instagram.
So, I want to speak to one of the candidates. Hopefully this answers some of your questions, but candidate A is one of my teammates, one of my friends. He's a person of color from a low-income community. He's also an athlete. I feel very comfortable with appointing him to being in the room. I think he would like a lot of good things to say that maybe the administrators would not consider. So yeah, I'll actually make a proposal. I propose to nominate candidate A to, what are we voting on? The Strategic Planning Steering Committee.
Alright, general feelings?
General feelings? All in
Do you want
favor?
to talk anymore?
No, we're good.
You want to?
Well, I was at the interview for candidate A, and I thought he gave a really good interview, like very solid. I feel really comfortable appointing him as one of our recommendations, because like we're not even like actually appointing people; we're making recommendations for other people to appoint. So I'd be down with like giving him his name.
Totally. Alright, we
Wait, so you were not actually appointed people? Wait,
Wait, how many
that's...
are we recommended?
can recommend up to 3.
Who decided that?
Well, okay.
Oh,
Can I direct respond to that?
Yeah, go for it.
So, okay, the way it works is we set forward 9 students, and of those 9, 3 students participate actively in the committee, but the other 6 are still involved. And so, like, the whole idea is that for those 3 students to allow people to go abroad, like also because it is a 2-year time commitment, and because we're students, we have a lot going on. So the idea is that from those 9, 3 would be chosen, but the rest would stay involved and step in when needed, participate in other parts of the process and all of that. So, yeah, that's what I know about it.
Really clarifying question for Paul, are you letting us stay?
What would happen if we only appointed 3 people? Then would they just have to accept the people that we nominate?
Seems that way.
Okay.
Ari and Sarah.
So we're in the process of what? Deciding one of them,
2 or 3.
2 or 3,
No, like 1, 2, or 3. You can appoint any of them to be like part of.
and Paul's proposal was A.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I am strongly in support of appointing A. I'm also I would like to strongly advocate for candidate C, because I've done a lot of work with them, and they think very hard and critically about structure, like the Oberlin is not just like the particularities of Oberlin, but also Oberlin as it exists as part of the academic industrial complex. And they're like extremely smart, committed, and are not afraid to ask hard questions. B, I was at the interview. I don't think this person is equipped with the sort of like understanding of Oberlin, first of all, and academia and like structure, second of all. Like that person seems very young and not prepared to. I wouldn't trust them to even ask like questions at all, because they just seem like they're not really coming from a place of well-seated knowledge. Yeah, I was kind of bummed out by that interview. So I would just like to add to Paul's or make another proposal that we recommend A and C, and not B.
Okay. I have Sarah and then Emma and then Andrew.
Sarah. Just clarifying, do people, like, is everybody who was nominated, like, informed about what the committee is and what it entails? Like, to
the best of our knowledge.
Can I say this like off the record? Like, It's okay.
Wait, hold on.
Maybe the record button.
What? Or no? Yeah. I'm hoping Kiki. And then we can get to that.
Can you make like a proposal A and C and not B?
We don't have to vote on B. If you don't vote on B, then B doesn't get appointed. But well, we can not vote on explicitly. I hope and then.
Yeah, just really quick. I was at C's interview, and I thought that they.
Is this on the record?
Yeah.
Okay,
Do you
good.
want to
No, this is good. I'm fine. Yeah, I was at C's interview, and I thought that they thought very critically about the institution, both now and in the future, and like they were very open to, you know, I think one of the answers to one of the questions we had, I think it was about like, I don't know, Karen, help me out. It was the one where it was like, how could Oberlin's role be in the future? I think when they were talking about like when to work with the institution, when to work outside the institution, and how to like align both those goals, and like work on communication and understanding. And I think that is really like what it takes to be on this committee. And I mean, like I definitely feel like candidate C would be good. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Mia. Mia's good. All right, so we have so many proposals that I can't keep track of them right now.
Okay, the one on the table right now that hasn't been voted for is proposed to elect candidate A and C, and the only other proposal on the table was also the proposal to elect candidate A.
I amended Paul's to add C to it.
Right, and then
Paul, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Let's vote on it. And are you okay with it being like not explicitly, maybe not B, but like just not voting on B? Does that matter?
Would that candidate have any chance of, it doesn't change anything in terms of him not being able to, okay, no, I don't care at all.
I mean, I guess like what I said before about like if we feel like really good about a candidate, we should elect them. I feel like that also kind of goes for if we feel kind of bad about a candidate. So, like we could, could we not just like vote on this person and just say no, and then like hope we get a lot more entries before the deadline of this?
Yeah. Okay, so the proposal then is A and C, but not B?
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All abstentions? 12-0.
Okay, we reflect the change. Thank you for all of your hard work, everyone. Honor committee and then the transfer participation. Okay, we have 2 people for the student honor committee.
This is the committee bylaw change thing?
No, that's another thing entirely. You should all be shared on the honor committee. Is everybody shared on the honor?
Sorry, I didn't do that. I'm doing it now.
What?
I didn't share the document.
Oh,
You
shit.
asked me at the very beginning. I just.
Yeah, that'd be great. See you.
Just to clarify, we can appoint both these candidates to the committee, right?
Yes, that is in the note.
Okay, so I was at the interview for the first candidate, and I'd also like to go on the record as apologizing for being late to that. There was like a time issue. I felt really bad. I dropped the ball, so on and so forth. Sorry? Yeah, I want that on the record. I feel terrible. Moving on. I think that candidate from the 45 minutes of the interview I was there for, because it was quite a long interview, is he's really qualified. He's going to be a senior, and didn't tell you which candidate that was. Rats. Student honor committee.
You're talking about A.
Yeah, okay. A. He's really qualified. He's going to be a senior in the fall, but I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Like, they could they can handle having people like drop out after next year. I think it's important that we appoint as many people as possible. Obviously, something that was really stressed to me in the interview was they're very close to being like having so few members they cannot function, and at least 4 people are graduating this year. So I think he's like a good candidate. I think he's thorough. He has like a very good background in being discreet. Like he had to keep state secrets like under the radar at one point, so I think he can handle like sending some like chill emails. So I'd say we should appoint him.
Oh.
Yeah, so I wasn't at the interview for person A, but I was for person B. Well, quickly, person A, I know person A, like, personally, and they are really cool, and I think that they would make this community great. Also, but I was at the interview for person B, and the person B is a computer science and mathematics major, which I guess on this committee is very underrepresented. And while that they were, some of their answers, they were like kind of shaky, but I think that they were very open to learning and open to, I guess like, they were very open-minded, and I appreciate that. And I also think that they would bring their perspective from the CS/math department. Like, they would definitely help out, since like, I guess this year the majority of honor violations were with regard to that department anyway. So I think that we should appoint them.
I have myself on staff next. So as a general honor committee thing, I really love this direction they want to take it in, which is basically that if you do a lot more education and like get that like more news about the honor code out there and like be really effective in that outreach, you won't have to see it as many cases. I think we can all get behind that. That being said, we shouldn't appoint people just indiscriminately. So on to the candidates. Candidate A is an incredibly solid worker. I know him personally, but I also went to the tail end of his interview. That was a really weird situation. But I went to part of his interview, and he's dropping some things because he's really busy, and I think he would be just incredible on this committee. Person B, I thought was also really solid. I'm going to echo what Hope said about the importance of like different majors to like attract or like work with different students, and a lot of violations are found through the computer science department, so it's good to have a few people on there. He was a little shaky on one or two things. What the committee commented on was that he was a little too lenient in terms of like punishments. I feel like that's the better side of like the wrong side to be on in that sense. I'd rather have somebody that's too lenient that like is trained to like know the rubric better than somebody that's just too strict and like needs to like really tone it down. So in that sense, I'm going to propose that we appoint A and B to the Student Honor Committee. General feelings. All in favor? Okay. All opposed? Abstentions? All right, we have two new honor committees.
That was 12-0-0.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. We started with 5.4.
That's awkward.
Yeah. Okay, so we're good with that. The last one, the Transfer Participation Athletics Committee. We have 2 applicants. Interviewed both of them on Friday. They're both incredible applicants to this committee. I think they'd both be really fantastic, and we can have both of them. I have no problems with either of them, but we can totally talk about them too. But just on the down, I'm just going to propose that we appoint both of them to the TPAC, as someone said. Rachel, what do you want to?
Also, well, Erin and I have been in touch with the committee itself, and the members, the chairs, whatever, of that committee approve of both candidates and like both of them.
Very strongly too. All right. Does anybody have anything else to say on this? General feelings on appointing them both. Hope is really excited about this. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions in the audience? No? We're done with committee appointments. How are you doing? How are you doing?
I just want to say, I think we should have like a big thanks to Erin and Rachel for setting up all these committees and like going to all these things. Like, I know that it's been rough, and I only went to like 7, so I don't know. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, you guys are the best.
20
Yeah. 36. Go ahead.
Yeah, and like on that note, like a few weeks ago we were having the same like argument about the musical studies double degree about like, oh, we should just appoint this person because they're here. But like everybody worked so hard, we got more applicants. I think we were like able to put, you know, better suited applicants to these committees. And like, this is like, you know, for all of the bullshit that the Senate has been through this year, like I think one thing that we really like did well was interrogate what it means for us to work with like committees and taking that seriously. And like Aaron like really rose to the occasion. And, like I would speak for myself, but probably also Kiki, and that like we really appreciate it, and that like we actually like, you know, went through and told the student honor committee we have to be part of these interviews. Went through with a lot of committees, holding them off, getting more applicants. Like we've done such a good job. And I hope, like I guess I'll try to put this into our institutional memory, but like we like learned a really big lesson this year with this, and like I'm just pretty happy with it.
No, I can't find it. I was this like whole time. I'm sorry.
Thank you for that. Okay, so
Are you looking for the bylaw change? Because I have like.
I just shared it with everyone. So on the subject of committee appointments, we've been through a lot this semester in terms of them and learned a lot. And so we had a meeting where we sat down with the honor committee to like kind of tease out like there is a sort of a distinction between the way that we appoint for their committee and other committees, and that we do the joint interview thing, which is not a standard custom. So we wanted the bylaws to reflect that to some degree. Also, I sort of went on my own and made a few personal changes too, basically to reflect the fact that like I think the committee system right now is kind of broken in a sense, and that even the committee appointments coordinator position is broken in a sense, and that I was hoping to fix it before I leave Senate. And so we've written all the things in bold, and I see a lot here logging out, which is awesome. All the things in bold are the new sort of things that we're proposing. There's a lot of it there, as I meant to share it with you earlier, and I apologize for that. If we can take a little bit of time to perhaps read through it, I think this is really, really important, and I'd like for future senators to like have a much easier time and like a better process of doing this in the future as what we're done. So if we can take a sec and then we can do questions and such. Rachel.
Oh, I just want to propose that we extend the plenary until, I don't know, 10.
Yeah.
10.
Also, I have my time card thing on there, and I like did 33 hours here, and I really want to be like paid for that. So, if y'all good for that.
Sustainability resolution. We've been working on that for like a really long time. It would be really cool if we could get to it.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's our last plenary.
Yeah.
We can go through it. Cool.
Do you need me to take minutes now?
No.
Oh.
9:30, 9:35. It's like my best friend is leaving. Yeah, no worries. I can do it. I'm excited to see him before he leaves.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't speak for all.
Sorry. That's me.
Okay. Who wrote the Zia?
That was me. Was that a typo? I was just wondering. That's such a simple thing.
Outlines?
Outline. Shouldn't it be outlined with lessons?
Oh, I mean that's the original bylaws that you're talking about.
Oh, really?
We can pass that change too.
The bylaws are so grammatically.
Yeah. All right. Outline. Do you want to change that? Pass it with the whole thing. Sounds good.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. We're making it better. Anybody want to make any comments on this? Rachel.
Yeah, well, I've already read these, and like my position is sort of overlapped with Aaron's in a lot of ways, and I think the changes really reflect the need for accountability for the committee coordinator position. I know Aaron has been basically doing the work of two people, and there hasn't really been any measures of accountability to help him out with that. So personally, I'd be in support of this because I've been working pretty closely in the position and doing a lot of extra interviews myself because of the lack of having two functional committee coordinator positions this semester.
What? No. Committee appointments coordinators. Me and other side.
Okay.
Shall remain nameless. Yeah. Yeah, Mia.
And I'd just like to say that, like, as it applies specifically to the Student Honor Committee, I've worked for a pretty long time. I've worked with them most of the semester now, and the work that Aaron and I have done with them to come to agreements about all of this, and all of that has really been like a really long thought out process. And so reading the bylaws after not being part of that, I can definitely see where it would take a little while to like kind of get what's going on. So like I would just really encourage you guys to just like ask questions. Like if something doesn't make sense, just like I've been thinking about this stuff for like a really long time, and Aaron has too, so I think we can answer them. And that might be a good place to start.
Okay, no CTC facilitation until 11:15 at night on a Friday.
On a Friday. On a Friday.
Yeah, you know it. Anybody, any comments on the bylaw?
I'm not done reading it, but I'm sure I'll have comments.
That's good. Glad. We can wait a second. Look around, smile at each other. Smile, Peter. I mean, yes.
Just trying to lighten the mood there.
Why are us all smiling at each other? Okay, good. Also, the stuff that says old and is in italics will be deleted. And I've like included all the information. I'm specifically talking about F. I've included all that information in the new F or another part of the bylaws. So we're not like losing anything. We're just either adding stuff or reformatting to make it make some semblance of sense. Yeah.
Oh, can we ask questions right
Yeah.
now? Okay. I don't know what page it is. Section I and the little I.
Section I and little I?
Yeah.
Okay. This starts with each semester every Saturday?
That's the big I.
No.
That's
Oh.
the guy, the Indian level.
So H little I?
No.
Yeah.
I, little I.
If a
If the
committee
committee
appointment
appointment-
coordinator fails to attend 50%
Oh,
of the
yeah.
Maybe I'm not thinking about this right, but if you fail to attend 50% of interviews, you get 5 points. If you fail to attend 25, you get 10 points. I think that's that.
Oh, 75%. You're right. Good call.
Great call.
Yeah.
Reverse incentive for second.
That would be really messed up.
I think you voted in.
I mean, I guess that's reflecting the fact that I think a committee appointments coordinator should be at least 50% of the interviews.
Makes sense.
And not 0 of them.
I don't think it's called no confidence.
Searching loopholes.
There's like a remove people for no confidence. No confidence.
You have a good one. Bye, guys. We lost the grit one tonight.
This is our last plenary together.
14.
Made it through without getting censured.
Good work. System works.
What's not proud about that?
It's not an executive.
Why would?
Oh, because the bylaws don't
I know.
make sense in their layout.
Okay, anybody have any questions about this?
They're in DC.
Okay, are we solid? Like we're passing a bylaw change here, people. I want to make sure that we are in favor of that bylaw change.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, me.
One other comment is, so I'm pretty sure that Pope and Harrison are the only two senators that are staying on. But something that I've really
Peter.
Oh, Peter.
What? Oh
You're
yeah,
staying
apparently
on.
I'm staying on for next semester.
Great. Well, even though there are only 3 of us staying on, something that throughout this whole process I've really realized is really important is just like communicating with the committees and like from our meetings, I think it would be really beneficial if like some of the senators who are staying on, if you guys would be willing to like have a conversation with Aaron and I about like the committee's process that we're setting forward here, that included some of the new members of the Student Honor Committee, because one of the biggest things is that since all their people are graduating, they have a lot of freshmen who are new to the whole process and new on top of having a new procedure and not knowing anybody is going to be a lot. So I would just like to suggest that we do that.
This is just a quick grammatical thing. Under J, subheading 1, it says, when making student honor committee appointments must, then it must. So you only need one must, and I would prefer it's the second must. And more general comment on it.
Where is this?
I vote for the first one.
J-I, or J, subheading like little I, like the one I. I highlighted it. Can you see?
You want to keep the last month?
Yeah, because saying when making student honor committee appointments must, Senate go into executive session is some weird Yoda nonsense. Like, I don't want to know the laws.
Sounds good.
Okay, on a more general note, I think these are really good amendments. I think the one thing I would say is that this ought to go hand in hand with an amendment to the current point system bit of the bylaws, which I can handle, and then like email to somebody who's gonna be on Senate next year and they can like vote on it in the fall. Because right now we have all over the bylaws different bits that are like, and then like you'll get 5 or like 2 or 10 points for doing X, Y, and Z that isn't reflected in the point section, which is like it's just dumb. And like, it's like, next year's ops manager is gonna be like very upset about it, because I was very upset about it. And so I just think that should be amended also. I really like these changes. That was a lot of work, sorry everyone.
Awesome. Anybody else? I propose we pass the bylaws change. General feelings. All in favor? Aye. Downward stomach.
I'll leave.
Sarah. All opposed.
I still like you, Sarah.
All abstaining. Cool. Thanks, y'all. 11? Oh yeah, 11. We lost one.
Put me on my shit.
11,000. Yep. Okay, that's done. Time card. Can somebody explain to me how what the limit actually is?
15.
15?
No, it's 20. I'm looking at those.
Okay, and then wait, I have a follow-up question too. Who makes that call to like cut off the pay? So those are my questions.
Okay. Senator compensation is capped at 20 hours per week. You can seek exemption following a week when you have worked more than 20 hours, and the exemption is approved by a majority vote. So like, we would all vote to say, Aaron, you should get paid for the 3,000 hours you worked this week. So that's what we do, just for like proposing.
Aaron worked his ass off this week. I propose that we pay him for it.
Pay him all the money.
Pay him all the money he deserves.
Thank you, everyone.
General feelings.
Oh yeah.
All in favor? Aye.
Aww.
All opposed? All abstaining? Any recusing yourself?
I'm abstaining.
Was anyone else ready to do it too?
Yeah.
I didn't work more than 20 hours.
Okay. Well, thanks, everyone. What happens now?
You get the
But who?
OST will handle it. It's like,
Okay.
So
you'll
yeah.
deal with it.
Just come to talk to her.
Cool. Okay. Sustainability resolution. Oh my gosh. Hope. Election computer program.
Yeah.
Is this a discussion or decision?
I think it's a decision. Although, maybe it's a discussion because I don't actually have a program in mind.
Process suggests.
I'll certainly do sustainability resolution.
Yeah, let's do that first.
Okay. Oh, sorry. General feelings. Awesome. That was weird. Pretend that makes sense. Okay, sustainability resolution. One of you two go.
You can go.
Oh, okay. So has everybody like gotten a chance to read it? You should have all been shared on it. If you guys need a minute to read, that's cool. It's like 3 pages. We had a lot to say. If not, I'm just going to give a quick background on how this was written. So all of the concerns here are from a list of student concerns that Paul and I compiled over the last month or so. We reached out to people individually, reaching out to like environmental groups like Anti-Frack, like posting on Facebook saying, hey, what do people want, so on and so forth. So this reflects not just what the 2 of us in the environmental working group think, but what a larger portion of the campus thinks. Obviously, like full disclaimer, we were not able to talk to every student, that would be insane. But we did speak to a number of people. Also, we reached out to the Office of Environmental Sustainability. Both of us individually met with Megan Reister, who's our new Vice President of Sustainability, and talked a lot with her about this. And so a number of the concerns in here that we talk about are actually introduced by her. And so that's something to keep in mind. And then we also spoke with Bridget Flynn, who read through this and gave feedback. And so I believe the OES has endorsed this resolution. Is that correct? Yeah. So this comes to you from the opinions of a number of students and the endorsement of the OES. So yeah. Do you have anything to add, Paul?
No, touched on it.
Cool.
Good work. Thanks for the shout out for Sustainable Transit Working Group.
Yeah, you guys are doing good work.
Oh, I'm sorry, Zia. I've been reading. James, go ahead.
I've been reading it too home. I'm about to finish up. So sorry, I shouldn't have put my hand in the air.
Well, you're on staff.
So I agree with everything except I had a question about one thing. For the second resolved, number 2, replace the heating system in old dorms with newer, more energy efficient heating systems to reduce energy consumption. What exactly do you mean by more energy efficient?
Direct response. That's like not the most like definitive terminology ever to exist. But like speaking from my own experience, I live in Barrows and the heaters are like terrible and there's no way to like modulate them, so they're on full heat all the time. And the advice I was given to make my room colder was, well, open the windows while it snows, that'll cool it down. And so like basically what we mean by energy efficient is a heating system that uses less energy by not being in full blast like in May and also December, because my heater's still on.
I got to clarify.
Oh yeah.
Could you possibly like? I mean, I'm not gonna make you put it in the resolution if you like. That's the law. But like, I live in Barrows and I had the same exact issue, and I have no idea why there couldn't be any way to lower the heating at all. Like, even if there's one dial in the entire dorm, like I don't know, like any way to lower it, because it's just either full blast or nothing, and that's the opposite of efficient.
Something that we called for in here was something that Megan brought to my attention. It's the robust building automation system, and what that is it's a remote system that would be like in the facilities building that could be controlled, and would put the entire campus on one like control system where you could just like turn the heat on or off in buildings like with the flip of a switch, which wouldn't even be all like the argument right now is inefficient because since we're burning coal, which we aren't anymore, like you don't want to turn it on and off to release the power, but now that we're on natural gas, like it's like flipping a switch, like there's no waste of power. So with the RBAS, like you could turn on the lights on and off in like mud or whatever at 4 a.m. if you wanted, or like turn the heat on or off, and you could just fix things easily. So that would be the solution we're proposing.
Mia.
Coming from someone with the opposite problem, where my room was below 60 degrees for almost a week straight, and it was really hard. Something that when I read your resolution earlier that I thought really should be emphasized is insulation, because like the heat problems that you're speaking to, I think are super important, and like
like we actually had this problem a lot in my old high school because essentially the temperatures for all of the high schools downtown was set to this like sustainable temperature, which wasn't necessarily like reflective of what the actual environment was. And like the system that you just suggested sounds like it would be like a really good way to like combat that, especially now that it's less of a deal to change the temperature in one building. But yeah, I would just like to emphasize the insulation part, because even if you have heating that is set at an appropriate level, if you don't have appropriate infrastructure to maintain and utilize it, it's kind of pointless.
Thanks right under the heater.
Sorry.
I'm just going to speak for Zeke right now, which is they did flip a switch this year for us twice in the middle of winter. We weren't really sure why, but that's just, I can't see the resolution, but that's just a concern. Not a lot of us spent a lot of time in the dorm, so we all leave our windows open because it's really, really hot when the heat's on, and we would come home and be like, oh, it was just a particularly cold day, and then we would never get warm again, ever, for like a week straight, because none of us noticed. And when we did notice, it took them an extra 3 days to turn our heat back on. So that's just, I don't fully know what the resolution is, but like watching like flip switching, it's a little scary because we didn't have heat for a long time because they just forgot.
Something on the second resolve number 3. I would like to add both dorms and village housing. Not just dorms, because I remember walking to lacrosse practice at 5 in the morning during February where it had snowed like 5 or 6 inches overnight, and you would look at the roofs of the village houses and they would be completely bare, and that has to be a problem because that means that a whole bunch of heat is escaping through the roof, meaning that they should probably put some insulation. It would save the college money in the long run too. So yeah, is general feelings about that change, that addition?
We're just gonna vote on it. It's voting. I have Emma and Rachel.
Okay, I wanted to address a couple of like Sarah's concerns, I guess, like about this like switch flipping. The RBIS, like the robust building automation system, that would allow for somebody to be able to remotely change, like not necessarily like flip switches, but like adjust it, so turn the heating up or down, so not even like turn it off completely. And if like students would have the ability to like call like SNS or like facility, I don't really know who they'd call, and like report if their dorm is like way too hot or way too cold, or it's just like an unsustainable or like a very like physically unpleasant environment, and it could be adjusted. So this, if the college like pays the money to get an RBAS, which like, you know, I'm not 100% confident they will, because that would be sustainable and productive, then we would be, I'm sorry, that's, no, I stand with that. Then it would be a lot easier to make these changes to the heating in dorms without like having to do like switch flipping and like making students freeze to death.
So there would be a way to modulate it. And
Yeah.
it's kind of applied that is.
Yes.
Okay. Because speaking for me and Lockwood, we do not like having to cuddle up in it because we're freezing.
Okay, it's a fancy science thing.
Okay. Mia.
Yeah. I have a question for either Paul or Emma. For the little number 4 in the resolved about turning non-essential lights off in campus buildings when they're closed, have you talked with SNS about that?
Direct response.
Yeah, direct response, no, we haven't talked with SNS about that, but when I spoke with I've spoken with people, I want to say it was Megan who I talked to, but I cannot remember at this time, so that it like, they had brought it up and it hadn't been an option. Like, for example, in the Science Center in the atrium, a light switch doesn't exist. So like, you can't turn off the lights without shutting off the power grid.
Huh.
That's
Those lights are always on.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no light switch in Zeke.
But it,
Anyways,
Yeah,
that's a stack, everyone.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that one of the biggest things with resolutions is making sure that like all of the making the strongest resolution is making points that are all like doable local, and so even though I agree that non-essential lights should be turned off, that is something we should probably talk to safety and security and other things, because that's a safety issue in certain buildings. And I don't know how much I buy it, but that's kind of what they say. That it's a safety issue, that if all of the lights are turned off, that I don't even know, that, whatever. But that's something we should probably look into.
Got Hope, then Paul, and then Emma.
I have a question for Paul or Emma, which is, I know you guys talk about dorms, maybe I'm missing it, I don't know, but are you allowed to address buildings public buildings like Mud and King, which are also extremely hot sometimes? I don't know, is that allowed to be in the resolution, or is that really not, shouldn't be addressed because it's not really in our jurisdiction?
Response?
Yeah, that was just something that never came up in discussions, so thank you for bringing that up. I think also, to talk to your point and also Mio's point at the same time with these campus buildings, when we talk about turning off lights, that should go also for turning off heat when it's unnecessary, for these large campus buildings that are locked at midnight or at 2 a.m. and you cannot enter them. So I don't think that we should be turning off all the lights in buildings or completely shutting off heating systems in residential buildings, because that is a safety hazard. But for and we can amend that before we vote on it. But for buildings like Mud or Wilder or whatever that are locked, there's no reason that the RBAS should be able to regulate their lights and their heating at all times.
Paul.
You can remove me.
So removed. Emma, do you want to keep talking to your answer?
I'm good.
Emma's good. Sarah, do you want to talk?
Just going to the thing about lights in general, I know that there's specific laws and highly recommended good practices for college dorms. I'm trying to find them, but there are certain things that the school just kind of has to do because it's illegal not to. And I don't know the specifics of that, and I don't know if you guys have looked into that, but that's just something to be aware of.
I think the wording non-essential kind of implies that if there's laws that say a light needs to be on, then obviously we're going to keep that light, the county would leave that light on. But if a classroom on the 3rd floor of King has its light on at 3 in the morning, that's a problem.
Anybody else want to talk about the resolution? Me, it does. Go.
Do you guys want to tell me about energy zones? That looks really cool.
Go for it.
Okay, so energy zones is an issue that I've been talking a lot about with other people recently, so I have a lot of things to say. The energy zones are essentially what is going to one day constitute our plan to get off of natural gas, because natural gas is terrible and we shouldn't be on it, is my opinion, not the opinion of the school. So what's happening is the first step is the college needs to make a strategic plan to create energy zones, to have a strategic plan to get off of natural gas, to have a plan to get onto a new energy source. So it's a lot of making plans right now. That falls under Megan Reister's office, and because she was just recently hired, there's been a lot of it's been taken a while to get to the point we are now. So that's also why one of the things that we call for in this resolution is further staff funding and an intern for the OES office, because Megan and to some extent Bridget also were speaking about how it was very difficult to get anything done, especially with the energy zones, because of just the large, my phone vibrates for 20 seconds, it's a thing, because of just the lack of resources they have. So the energy zones they're going to divide the campus up into, I believe, 8 is the number I've heard, zones. The first one's already been determined, it's the Con Stevie area. And there's going to be a strategic plan starting with the first zone, and moving on to the second, moving on to the second, third, fourth, so on. I'm not putting my back. So the second, third, fourth, so on and so forth zones to get off of natural gas in the first, and the second, and then the third, and then the fourth. And so I think, does that answer your question? Okay.
That was the last one. Anybody else got something? Mia.
I think it's a really great resolution, and I really like what you guys put together.
Thank you.
Do we want to vote on it now? Proposal, we passed the resolution. General feelings. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Beautiful. Good work, Senate.
Okay.
Alright.
Emma, do you have to talk for the next thing? For the next thing that you're doing?
Election computer program? No.
Hope does.
Not me.
Okay.
You need me to take notes? Yeah.
I'm gonna be here for 35 more minutes.
Work on the project.
Can we do it at 10:35 after my friend leaves?
Yes.
Okay. Because I've been doing stuff this whole weekend.
Yeah, thanks for staying so late. I could have taken over earlier probably.
No, but you were talking, I was like, oh, let me not leave in the middle of her, because she can, you know. Sorry. I got your back.
Thanks.
Alright.
Are you ready?
3 seconds.
No, I'm totally fine.
Are these your two last set of pointers
For my life.
for good for a while? Yeah? Well, thanks for coming.
I hope you singers have a great night. And a great, you know, things that senators do.
We don't do anything else, we're just gonna sit at this table.
Yeah, that's all I do.
That's what I get.
Is it over?
No.
Okay. Just a little bit.
So really quickly, I know in the past, this semester and then semesters before, we've been having some issues with the election program. I don't know the exact details as to why like Excel doesn't work or Google programs don't work, but I think that since we have extra money, or I guess we could add how to access.
$2,500.
Okay, I'd be interested in speaking with CS majors who might shed light into like as to what program would be appropriate. I personally, if I'm one of the only people on Senate who are running election next semester, I'd really appreciate not having to count them by hand, especially wanting to be as transparent as possible and make sure that like human error is not a factor in this. So I think that I'll do some research. If other senators would be interested in helping me as well, that'd be greatly appreciated as to a new program in which to run the election for next fall. And I guess like this is a discussion, so any thoughts or suggestions or anything?
Does anybody remember the name of the guy, Andrew something, A something?
I know he worked for Fearless and Loathing.
Oh yeah.
Sarah
I also
might
know other ones.
You puked in my bathroom one time.
He wasn't interested.
Well, that feels like you're
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not.
Can I say one thing really quick? After working with a referendum, one of the only things that I thought of as far as like criteria is that I think we have to have some kind of validation with Oberlin emails, and that's something that had something to do with why we use the program. So like for the referendum, if you try and fill it out without being logged into an Oberlin email, it just doesn't work. And like that's the way we like validate those responses. So on that note, thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Mia, for that.
This is really great. I'll see you later.
Anybody else have anything on this subject?
Good.
Are we done?
We need to check out. Oh, no, we don't.
We don't need to check out. We're done. This is the end of
I
it.
checked out a while ago.
Anyone have any last words to say for the Senate?